actual fact, the God of light and fire. We're going to continue where we got cut off. All right. We were on page 67. All right. So where we left off at, we were learning about the cannibalistic and evil nature of these Adamites and their Adamite makers, which were these extraterrestrials that came down. So we're going to continue reading about the nature of those gods in the verses where we left off. So we're on page 67. Lamentations chapter 4 verses 10. The hands of the pitiful women have sodden their own children. They were their meats in the destruction of the daughter of my people. King James Version. In Jeremiah chapter 19 verses 9. And I will cause them to eat the flesh of their sons and the flesh of their daughters. And they shall eat everyone the flesh of his friend in the siege and straitness, wherewith their enemies, and they that seek and they that seek their lives shall straiten them. All right. So this God is going to cause this creation to eat their own sons and daughters and to turn on their friends and seize their friends and eat them. All right. 327. You see it in the book of Enoch, chapter 7, First Enoch, chapter 7, verses 13 through 14. And you see it in the book of Jubilee, in the book of Enoch, when they turned themselves against men in order to devour them and began to injure birds, beasts, reptiles, and fishes to eat their flesh one after another and to drink their blood. And Jubilee, chapter 5, verses 2 and 3, reads those, choose, and they bore unto them sons, and they were Nephilim, and lawlessness increased on the earth, and all flesh corrupted its ways. Alike men and cattle and beasts and birds and everything that walks on earth, all of them corrupted their ways and their orders, and they began to devour each other, and lawlessness increased on the earth, and every imagination and thought of all men was evil continuously. All right, so all the flesh corrupted their own orders, their own laws, their own ways. All right, like the birds are with the birds, the penguins are with the penguins, the sea turtles are with the sea turtles, the dogs are with the dogs, and they live according to their laws and their organization. But like you see today, they want the cat, the rat to be friends, the dog and the cat to cuddle up and watch TV and things that go against its nature. All right. So 328. These are the Sajal records of the Adamite Salal race that they don't want the world to know. Caucasoids are evil by nature and cannibals from their makers who made them in their own image and after their likeness. This means that they look like them and they act like them. Genesis chapter 1 verses 26 through 27. They ate flesh, and the Adamites love to eat meat. They love flesh. All right. And we have inherited that. And the interesting thing is that there is a certain level of colonialism and even hierarchy about flesh I learned about. So like it's considered like when I went to Nigeria or even in the Caribbean, they eat so much meat. I guess, well, the people I'm around, they eat so much meat in Nigeria. And when I listen to them and hear the philosophy about the food, I realize it's the result of colonialism, because it's like they look at vegetables and things like that as the food of poor people. So I realized they created a hierarchy. So when these colonial forces, when they went into Africa, and it was like they made it luxurious to live and behave and eat and do the things that Caucasians did. So the way that a lot of Africans eat and hearing the mentality that how they look at the vegetables and stuff, like, oh, that's what the poor people eat. All right. So the Adamites, they love to eat meat and flesh. All right. So for those of us who like to eat a lot of meat and flesh with every meal, because there's a lot of us that are like that, where's the real food? Where's the meat? I hear people saying that with every meal. And I get it. It's in our nature, it's in our DNA now. But so much, maybe we could, learn to have a meal without meat sometimes. It doesn't have to be 3 times a day and every day and all day. All right. So now you know where that lust came from. All right. In Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 and 27, it says, and God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. And God created man in his own image. In the image of God created him. Male and female he created them. They ate flesh. King James Version, King James Version. All right. 329. This Nuwapians takes us back to Revelations chapter 19, verses 11 through 21. Speaking about their Yahweh of the Elohim, the Lord or God of gods. The 331. Cherub of the cherubims, Allah of the Allahats, Rab of the Rabbayun, Rab of the Rabbayun. All the same, God of light and fire, chaos. All right, so all the same. Whether they go by Rab or Rabbi, Allah or Allahats, Cherub, Cherubim, Rabbayun, all right? It's all the same, the God of light and fire, King of kings, Lord of lords, El of Elohim, Jah of Yahweh, El Elyon of El Elyon, Shad of El Shaddai, Adon of Adonai, Baal of Baalim, God of Balgad, Theos of Theo, all right? So you're seeing the singular version of the word and you're seeing the plural version, whether it's El or Elohim, Elyon or El Elyon, all right? And whatever title in singular or plural that they take, Theos or Theo. So they are the same beings at the Anunnakim, Anunnaki, under new attributes, titles, names, and tones. Much of the Shema or Sumerian or the stone tones, which are the Kanafui or cuneiform, which are in cuneiform. All right, so the Sumerian tablets are in cuneiform. One thing I love about Baabaa is he speaks so many languages. So there's no taboos in our doctrine. We have access to pretty much everyone. He could tell us about cuneiform, Sanskrit in the Hindus, our own ancient languages, even the Oriental languages and all that. Baabaa could. He has the gift of gab. People think that it meant like Baabaa know how to talk to people and he's charismatic, which he is. But the gift of gab really meant the gift of language. All right. So Baabaa always said he has the gift of gab. You realize Baabaa meant the gift of language. All right. So 348, who passed it on to Shem or Sem to become the Semites or the Shamyaza or Samuel of the book of Enoch. All right. So the cuneiform was passed down to the Shemites. All right. And it became Samuel of the book of Enoch, who led the 200 fallen Ukiki or Nephilim, Nephalu or Munfalu. All right. So Nephalu, Munfalu. So for those of us, I'm not the best with the language, but I know certain laws of the language. So Nephilu, we could just do a quick review. Nefalu is the fallen ones. So Nefal, something about fallen. But if you say Moonfalu, now you know it's a being, a physical being, a person. So whenever you see the word Mu, all right. So even the name Muhammad, so Mu has to do with the people. Although you see some variations as Mo, all right. So it's depicting probably some event, that name, all right, as we dispel, all right. So Moonfalu, all right. So that's the root. So Mipta is the root of that word in our Lahaj is Pata, all right. So Nafalu is Moonfalu, all right. For a person, this is a thing, all right. The thing is the actual dot I put in my head, all right. So he has his own name in many forms. Shamyaza, Amezyak, Amezyarak, Amezyarak, all right. Listed in the book of Enoch in chapter 6, verses 7 through 8, the book of the watchers, all right. So the book of the watchers. Enoch, chapter 6, verses 7 through 8, it reads, and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And these are the names of their leaders. Lazaz, their leader. Okay, so their leader is Lazaz. Then you have Arakelba. Then you have Ramil. Kokablel. Then you have Tamlel, Ramlel, Daniel, Ezekiel, and Barakijel, Aziel, Amaros, Baterel, Ananil, Zachlil, Samsapil, Sataril, Teril, Jomjil, Sariel. These are their chiefs of tens. All right, so those were the leaders' names. These are the different. So that was the head leader and all the other the other leaders. All right. So these are their chiefs of tens. All right. So then it seems like each leader had under themselves 10. All right, 10 beings under them. All right. 349. On to their offspring in Genesis chapter 9, verses 18 to 26, where you find Shem. On to 10, that's Genesis chapter 10, verses 21 through 25, where you find Eber, which is Hebrew, for the same root, crossover. All right, Eber. So now you see Eber and Hebrew. All right, both the same, both with the root word of the same. Because Baaba's training us to how to navigate language. Because Baba even went to school for that as well, but also he was gifted with that. So you have Eber and Hebrew both having the same roots. All right, and both taking you back to mean crossover. All right, so these people became defined by an event that happened. They crossed over. All right. And Nibiru or Mothercraft Nibiru. Let's see if he's going to explain more. Because I'm thinking Nibiru have something to do with crossover too? So let's read that again and see. On their offspring in Genesis chapter 9, verses 18 to 26, where you find Shem. On to 10, Genesis chapter 10, verses 21 through 25, where you find Eber. I also hear the word Shem, were the Semites, and also Sham, which is another way that they say craft. So I'm seeing that link because I'm seeing the link how Bible says Hebrew, and Nibiru. All right. Because we're finding that these shams weren't really for us. All right. So Shem. All right. So on to their offspring in Genesis chapter 9, verses 18 to 26, where you find Shem. On to Genesis chapter 10, verses 21 through 25, where you find Eber, which is Hebrew, the same root word crossover, and Nibiru, the mother craft Nibiru. Yeah, it's there. Okay. There we go. Because Baabaa breaks it down. He puts N dot IBIRR. So in some languages, vowels are interchangeable. So if you put N dot EBER, you still have Eber, so Nibir. So Eber, Nibiru. All right. So it's linked. And whenever you just put U, because now we know it was many crafts. When you in our language you pluralize, so Nibiru. So it was many of them. So U mean that it was more than one. All right. Just by the rules of the language. All right. Just by the rules of Mispatia. All right. So that's why Baabaa said we could learn to speak the language. All right. So you would be able to see things easily. All right. I don't speak the language. I just happen to know that particular rule. So Nibiru. All right. So Eber. So could be many Eber. So if you say Iberu, that means that there are a few of them. All right. So a thing of crossing over. All right. Because when you can say Patah, that's the idea or the deity of opening. All right. That's the action. Then you have Miptah. It's a thing of opening. Muptah. All right. So a thing of opening. Muptah, that's a person who opens. All right. So N could have a significance, and we might find out later. All right, we'll see. In Genesis chapter 10, verses 21 through 25, it reads, Unto Shem also, the father of all children of Eber, the brother of Japheth, the elder, even to him were children born, the children of Shem, Elam, and Assur, and Arphaxad, and Lud, and Aram, the children of Aram, Uz, and Hul, and Gether, and Mash, and Arphaxad begat Jalah, and Jalah begat Eber, and unto Eber were born 2 sons, and the name of one was Peleg, and for in his days were the earth divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. All right. Sometimes we see that these people's names actually represent events, things that's happening, and also groups of people. So an event can give birth to an event. There could be a divide. We can call the divide brothers. All right. Because we may see the story, it's the same story, you may see appear in different ways. All right. So you'll be able to recognize the same story no matter in which way it's told. All right. So this Shem, the father of the Shemites or the Semites, the Hebrew seed of Eber, linked to Nibiru or Nibiru, crossing the sky. There we go. It is. Because Eber means crossover. Hebrew, same root word crossover. And Nibiru is also cross over the skies. All right. So Baabaa explains that right there. But you can see it in the language, if you could read between the lines. But here Baabaa confirmed it for us. All right, so we don't have to wonder if we're right. This is the confirmation in verse 350. All right, so let's read that again. So this Shem, the father of the Shemites or the Semites, the Hebrew seed of Eber, linked to Nibiru, or Nibiru crossing the sky. is stocking craft you read about in Revelation chapter 21. Now from the Shemites to the Eberites, they became the Semites or the Semitics because of the many dialects they broke off into. All right. So from the Sham or from the Shem on to Eber. So Shem is first and then Eber. And in the same way, the Shams and the Beru. All right. Just things to put in your back pocket. All right. So 352. And one name, Ibrahim, became Abraham, to Abraham. In Genesis chapter 17, verses 5, on to Abraham. All right. So on to Quran, chapter 2, verses 1 through 30. Chapter 2, verses 130. The father of Hebrews and Muslims. All right. So we're looking at a course of action. All right. So Bob has given us a timeline of what happened. All right. So setting the record straight. So what event led to what other event? How did these people come about and how did they break off? And what was going on? What's the politics? All right. Now you can see it's a course of action. So it's like a roadmap through, I guess, the lack of a better word, the evolution from one state to another, or how did they become from one people to this people, and even what's happening in the skies. All right. So, and even why Abraham, his name went through changes, because every time something happened, it would be marked. All right. An event happened and it would cause this, and a whole course of action will follow. All right. So the one name Abram became Abram to Abraham in Genesis chapter 17, verses 5, on to Ibrahim in the Quran, chapter 2, verses 130, the father of Hebrews and Muslims. All right. So that's the father. Abraham is the father of Hebrews and Muslims as a Jew. All right. So how did that break apart? So here we have conniving on one side, because I would say Sarah is a very conniving woman, and that's Isaac. And on the other side, rape, that's Hagar. So connivingness and rape. All right. And how that broke off into, and what became what. All right. Genesis chapter 17, verses 5. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham, the father of many nations have I made thee. All right. So it's going to split up and do different things. All right. So from one event or meeting, who met who here, or when did we change our name? All right. What was going on at the time? Who did I interact with? What's the circumstances? All right. If you follow the language, it's going to tell you a story. All right. As the names do. All right. So in Quran chapter 2, verses 130, it reads, and as for him who turned away, rejecting the law, rejecting the law, the Malats writes of Abraham, he makes a fool of himself. And indeed we not he, the Elohim Anunnaki, have chosen Abraham, that's how they say it there, Abraham, in the physical world. And surely when Al-Aqar, the end, comes, he will be Salahim, or perfectionist, a perfectionist. Okay. So perfected. All right. So again, you have to ask, perfected for what? All right. Depends on what you were designed for. All right. Because I could be perfect for something, but you're better off asking somebody else if you're going to ask me for a certain thing. But I might be perfect for this job or that job, for example. All right. So he who turned away from rejecting the law. All right. The law, the rights of Abram. All right. So there's a law. So that's the priesthood of the Leviticus. Because remember, the Levites are the law keepers. So now you have Leviathan. So now you see what Leviathan is. All right. So Leviathan is that priesthood. And anyone underneath that jurisdiction, all right, is under the laws of Leviathan. All right. So they turn away, rejecting the law and the rights of Abraham. The rights of Abraham, that's all under Leviathan priesthood. Okay. All right. So that's translated by Asaid Isa al-Hadi al-Mahdi. 353, father of Musasu, Israelites of Yaqub, or Jacob's 12 sons and one daughter. All right. So now you see there is different politics that continue to happen, because then you have the Israelites. All right. Yaqub, Isaac, that's part of Isaac's line. That's the Isaac side. And then you have Jacob's 12 sons. All right. So the 12 tribes, that's where you get the 12 tribes. The Levi tribe and Reuben and all those names. All right. And they didn't always get along, those 12 tribes. So they would go off. It's time for me to move out and do things my own way. All right. So then they go off. But they still take you back to the same root, even with the slight distortions, even with the disagreements. It's the same roots. So 354, father of Mushamu, Israelites of Ishmael and Ishmael, 12 sons and daughters. All right. So on both sides. Each had a black seed amongst them. Among the Israelites, it was Judah, the lost tribe. And among the Ishmaelites, it was Kedar, the lost tribe. Why is that? Because as they're going around, they're still mixing in with all others. All right. So they both ended up picking up melanin on both sides. All right. So that'll be the tribe of Judah. All right. Where they get some melanin in that family. And then on Kedar, it's on the other side. All right. 358. The family of Yaqub broke up into two lands of people, those of Jah and those of El, or Enki and Enlil. Okay, there we go. So the El side is Enlil, and the Enki side. All right. So the master of earth is the Jah side. That makes sense. Because that makes sense now. Because Enki was given permission to come down, and then Enlil, they were supposed to keep and not mix their seed. That was the El side. All right. Enlil, El. So you just remember Enlil for El, Enki for Jah. So Enkiites, or the Judites. The Enkiites was Judah. The two brothers followed him, Dan and Benjamin, southward to set up in the land of Judea. 360. The Enlilites was the other tribes that stayed under Solomon to set up the land of Israel, north. As you read the Bible, you will notice the prophets, Safahat's books, their Rananats, names, tell you if you are speaking on behalf of Enki, such as the name of Joshua, Nehemiah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Hosea, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Zephaniah, Zechariah, Malachi. All right. That's all Enki side. All right. And then those who are speaking on behalf of Enlil, names will be such as Samuel, Ezekiel, Daniel. So notice the endings of El for Enlil. And he was the first called El. All right. So he was called El, and then those after his order would be called Els as well. So Enki was the first to be called Yah or Jah. Later, both became mixed by records and became Baal, Yahweh, Adonai, El, and others. All right. So then they came together and mixed. All right. And both had sons and daughters, also found in the Bible and Quran under the name or attribute and other names, such as El Shaddai, Shad, Belial, Azazel, Molech, Dagon, Satire, Satan, Nakash, Molech, and on to confuse the reader, like Allah or Ilah. From Hebrew, Elah is of the Enkiites. Sects of them joined on to Enlilites, confused. All right. So you have sex, because when you start having sex, as in SECTS, because things start to further divide. So I could be under the same school, like what people are trying to do with Baaba's information. That's why I don't have time for the newcomer, old comer, because I don't care. All right. I mean, old timer, newcomer, who cares? Because that's how you create sects. So we all are under Baaba, but you know what? This set, my set, what's your set? You know? But you see where they're getting that from. All right. So the sets, so this one that was under this original leader, then they have their own sets. And then you have another leader, because they were already together and they broke up. So the original John, the original L. And then you have sets under them that end up coming back together. All right. So as you read in Hebrew, Rab is only a human teacher. All right. So they have ways to even distinguish by the language or the title. Okay. Are you a human teacher? Are you extraterrestrial teacher, etc., etc.? All right. Or are you from this side of the family? Are you from that side of the family? So all of these are different events, and just by understanding or comprehending language. Or when do your people get recognized? Was it before this event or was it after this event? All right. 368. Yet in Arabic, Rab became Allah. So as you begin to understand these actual facts, Nuwapians, you better understand Revelations chapter 19, verses 11 through 21, speaks of the war or Nakad's conflict of these Gadadu gods. All right. So that's conflict, because now you start having this sect. What sect are you? What sect? Are you sect newcomer? Are you sect old timer? Claim your sect. All right. So this is, what is that? That is what is that word called? Evidence of a conflict. All right, which we're not gonna feed into, because right now there's people, I don't know how long they've been around. I had some old timers that been around that has been very hopeful, and then people, I don't know how long they've been around. I don't know. If we're under the same leadership, it doesn't really matter, all right? Unless you're part of a sect, all right? So the conflict between the gods, the Gadadu, all right? When the war of the gods of Nawar lights and Narar fire started, this time the skies opened, all right? So now you're going to, when you have time on your own time, you're going to read Patarak, the prism, because what is the nature of light? The nature of light is to divide, all right? And when you give birth to that light, its nature is going to want to divide, and you're going to give birth to the rainbow with all its own frequencies or its own angle or vibration of light. All right. So you can have the war between the lights. All right. And then you go back into, and before then, and into darkness before the light, who is the creator of light. There's no division there. All right. There's no up, there's no down, no left, no right. It is what it is. But then there's rules on this side. All right. So you have the war of the gods of Nawar, lights and Narar, fire started. This time the skies opened, and shining what looked like white, which is really metallic, coming forth like horses to battle. The ones who is flying like bird-like crafts returned as he claimed. So he is trustful, true to his word. 373. And he comes forth to make war between thee. He is no more, no less than one of many, Anunnaki or Anunnaku, Anaku. All right. So now we see in our language, how can we say it in Mispatia? Anaku or Anunnaki in Sumerian. All right. Anaku. All right. Because ku, u is going to multiply it. All right. So Anaku, Anunnaki or Nakim. All right. So Bible is very redundant or repetitive, because this way that no matter what form something can take, you can see it in different forms. All right. And you'll be able to recognize it and not get confused by a slight change, because really you're just going through a change of tongue. All right. Or a different people or a different time period where you're talking about the same beings. So Anaku, Anunnaki, Anaki, Anakim, for and with Adamite seed, the Enocyte race of Kakazu or Kakasu, Caucasoids. His eyes are blazing fire. He is no more, no less than many Anaku, Anunnaki, Anaki, Anakim of Noir lights. Nanar, son of Enlil. 375. He had the Anaku or Anunnaki, Anaki, Anakim, headdress of ruler of many ancient lands. Ruler of many ancient lands. So when we say ancient, a lot of times if you look up, that means before. All right. Ancient, something before. All right. So many ancient lands. All right. So he had his little titles that mortals do not recognize, written that he knows sin. Kata, Hebrew Strong's number 2403, which means to whom the sacrifice is offered. All right. So his name is Kata. Wow. It's so funny because I knew somebody with a name that sound very similar to this, Kata. And I thought it was a very interesting name. And the funny thing is, this person, they had a very warlike nature. I knew their blood type. How did I know? Don't ask me. But I knew their blood type, which was they had a rhesus negative blood type. Very, very disagreeable person. Very, and they also, wow. And I'm just like, wow. That's why the importance of names, vibration, kata. All right. So one who makes sacrifices is offered. That person's name had the root word. It was the same roots in the name. So they had also a lot of abortions. A lot. All right. So that's what the person's name means. Now that I look at the root, it means a person to whom sacrifice is offered. All right. So also I was looking at the artwork of, I forgot the name of that witch. She's a big known witch. And she's an artist, but her daughter's artist too. And her daughter, and I was like, wow, they kind of explain, because sometimes I like to listen to how they explain things so I could see what they're talking about. And do the artwork so I could see the same roots even in the person's art. All right. I don't remember the person's name. All right. But you always see her with celebrities and stuff like that. But her daughter has a different energy. Her daughter was very abused too, but she doesn't know that she was abused. But she has a piece where it's a woman it's a picture, it's a sculpture. It's a sculpture of a woman, and the woman's pregnant, and you see the stomach is actually like teeth. So the stomach, it has a mouth on it and it's open like it's gonna eat. And I was looking at that piece and I was like, wow. And I understood, because Baba always talked about how there's witches in our tribe and there's witches and don't become a witch. And I'm like, Baba never explained what a witch is. And then I totally got it from that piece of art. I'm like, that's what a witch is. So when I listened to how she explained the art piece, and she explained because women is so much abuse is done to women, all right. And you take up so much of her energy, and everything comes to feed, what ends up happening, that she will turn and feed on the very things that she produces. And I was like, wow, so that is a witch. I get it. Right. So so the stomach, you see, is devouring its own life force, its own child. All right. So now kata, right, which means to whom the sacrifice is offered. All right. So now it's no mistake now why a person with a name with the same roots would be living that same energy. All right.
Did you want the names, Amutet, or were you just?
What's the name again? I don't remember. What I asked.
Uh, I'm not sure if this is exactly who you're talking about, but if I'm not mistaken, is it Marina Abramovic?
No, it's not her, but it's
Oh,
that other crazy lady.
oh,
They look the same. It's not Marina Abramovic. Uh, the Marina Abramovic, she does a spirit cooking, and she's a performance artist. But the other one, I don't know what the other one does. I just know that she's always mixed and mingled. You see her with Cardi B. You see her with a lot of rappers. And when she talks, like when I watch her stuff, like Marina Abramovic, I could watch her stuff. When I watch the other lady, it almost feels like I'm smoking a cigarette. Like I can't watch her for long, and I get so tired. So I watch her in small doses, and I get tired of her. So I saw what I needed to see. I don't need to see anything else. But yeah, that other lady, she's like an energy vacuum, right? Um, so in Genesis chapter 4, verse 7, it says, "If thou dost well, if thou dost well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou dost not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him." All right. So he is dressed in a vesture covered in blood, and it is to speak for Enlil, or the word of God, as you read in John chapter 1, verses 1 through 14. All right. So Enlil, covered in blood, dressed with the sacred headdress or whatever it is. All right. So he is the host of cherubim, Karabu, or Mukrayu, Mukrabu, flying with him, Karabu. In Psalms, chapter 97, verses 1 to 12, he and his angelic beings. In Psalms, chapter 68, verses 1 to 18. This is also shining crafts, the glory of God, and dressed in shiny white linen, spotless, no bloodstains. Yet they fly like birds in the sky. And out of Nanar's mouth, he is shown a sharp tongue, is like a cutting sword. With it to strike down the nations of the people. And he plans to rule all of them by force, or an iron scepter. All right, in Psalms 23, verses 1 through 6. I have to comment on it because it just reminds me of this. It's a relatable incident. So you know, when I was told as supposedly the message that Baba has given, supposedly, right? Which I have the right to question, all right, if Baba said what they claim that he has said. Um, and it's like, okay, you delivered the message. Now, what the person does with it, that's no longer your business. Same way I read the scrolls. Now, what you do with it, that's your judgment. That's no longer your business, my business. All right. However, I might come and check, like, listen, this is where this person's getting this information. So let's read this book, right? But at the end of the day, people go but so far. Let me turn on my light. And when we try to, like, you can't bully somebody or shame somebody into doing what you want them to do. All right. Either you are either you are in the midst of a reasonable well-being or you're not. All right. So we reason with them and you can't. So either you go your way or whatever you do, you know. But you cannot shame somebody, guilt somebody, force somebody, all right? Because that is the genetics. I remember Baba saying, I'm trying to breed the Anunnaki out of you. So now I was just laughing because I'm seeing the Anunnaki nature, all right? So when I read that again, it's about Nanar. Nanar's sin's mouth, he shows up, or he shows a sharp tongue to cut like a sword, with it to strike down the nations of people. Why? As he plans to rule all them by force as an iron scepter. All right. So I had to explain that, like, because a person came in, because I guess somebody replied and told the person off, and somebody they came back in my inbox, and what they had said was that they're gonna tell Baba that I allowed somebody to tell them off. And I just laughed and I said, I didn't allow anybody to do anything because I'm not controlling anyone. I'm not about control. You're about control. I can't allow anybody to do anything. All right. And I don't, and the same way I left that up, I leave it, I also allowed you to tell me off. All right. So I allowed a person, I can't tell another grown person what to do. All right. So that was my response. I'm not about control like these other ones, these other Anunnaki. I'm about controlling myself and discipline. All right. Self-control. And the more I feel control of myself, the less I feel the need to control others. All right. Um, and that's my response. All right. And that's my reality. It is true because the more I feel out of control, you want to control other people, all right, because you feel insecure. So the more you start to feel secure in yourself, you start to accept others and their decisions, all right. So I'm working on taking control of my own decisions. So that's a way that I'm just relating the nature of real life, how we see it play out in our daily lives. And I'm sure everyone can relate in some shape or form to different events taking place in these scrolls. All right. So let's continue reading. In Psalms chapter 23, verses 1 through 6 reads, The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me into the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yeah, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, which Baba highlighted and underlined. So he said, thy rod and thy staff, thy comfort me. Thou preparest me a table before the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That's the King James Version, 1611 AD. So he treads their blood as wine in a wine press in fury and wrath of Enlil. All right. He as his son El Shaddai or Ash-Shadid, the Almighty God, Lord Almighty. In Deuteronomy chapter 32, verses 17 reads, Thy sacrificed unto devils, and it has in parentheses 7,700 shed, not a God, to gods whom they knew not, to new gods that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not. All right. So new gods that's coming up, who the fathers feared not, or the fathers probably didn't know. All right. Why? Because these gods die and give birth. All right. Just like the beings on planet Earth, they might have a different time span, but they're born, they have chromosomes, mothers and fathers, etc. as well. All right. So on his robe, on his thigh, he has his name written, King of Kings, or Ruler of Rulers. That is for statesmen, the Lord or Lords. That is for righteous men, King of Kingsmen. 387. The seed that mixed in with the Nephalu, fallen ones, or Munfalu, Nephilim, fallen Ikiki, line from Adamites, the Adam's son. Seth's son, Enos, called in the Muslim Quran Anas or Al-Isan. All right. So you have specific events and mixtures. All right. So that sector of the Adamites that mixed in with the Nephilim. All right. For Ashahu females, Anisa, the forgetful ones. Anisa. So that's the female version, the forgetful ones. All right. So I remember Baabaa talking about these names. He said, you got to give back your names and give back those names and those tones. And a lot of the names like Hakia or whatever names, he was like, he was saying that you're linking to Hindu gods, like Rihanna, but it's like Rihanim. I forgot. Rihanna is a one of those goddesses. I forgot how to the root of it, but it's like a variation of the name. And we're aligning with those agendas, all right, and those spirit forces, all right. So that's why Baabaa is taking us to Nadaru, so we can take our own names, because you can open the door for your own spirit forces who are not carnivoristic, all right, that'll help guide you away from the chaos, whereas some of these forces are taking you back to the chaos. All right. So in the name book, even going by certain names and hearing certain tones can open you up for walk-ins as well. Because when that tone is called, everyone in that vibration, so if everybody's name is James in this room and I just say James, they all turn around. All right. So you guys all vibrate on that same tone for a moment. And that's where all those James could affect each other, but not all James, for example, might be on this side of the hydrogen molecule. All right, so both dead and alive James turn around. All right, so because I'm like Anas, I'm like I'm Anisa. I mean Anisa. I've heard somebody with that name before. All right, so for the Ashahu, the females, Anisa, the forgetful ones, for they forgot. In Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 through 5, and now worship the image of the beast as their Messiah or the anointed cherub. All right. So they were made to forget. So you confuse the people, you get them focused on something else, right? And now you have usurped that person, because what was Nanar's mission? Nanar's mission is to take over other nations of other people. All right. And in order to really do that, you have to unplug the people to what they are already doing, to the programs they're already on, so you could plug them into your program. So the best way to do that is to cut them off, confuse them, make them forget. All right. So the female and Nisa, all right, the ones who have forgotten in feminine form. All right. So now they worship the image of the beast as their Messiah. All right. In Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 through 5, it reads, "And it comes to pass, when man began to multiply on the face of the earth, the daughters were born to them, that the sons of God," okay. So Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 through 5, "And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, that the daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them of wives all they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There will be giants in the earth in those days. And also after that, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, and some became mighty men, which were old, men of renown. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination and thought of his heart was only evil continuously." Evil continuously. All right. So now they worship the image of the beast as their Messiah, the anointed cherub, the one who pretends to be God, and the sons of God. All right. So you have people. I'm seeing it's the same role. You know, I'm not trying to throw shadiness, but I think it's relative. All right, relative. You can relate to that. One who pretends to be a god or a son of God. All right. So I'm gonna throw you off the square. I'm gonna put myself above and be like, you need to fall in line under me because I've been here longer. All right. So that to me is the same way of putting on pretending to be God. And that's not the way. That's not our way as Wusabat. You have to reason out. All right. That's not reasonable. All right. So now the women have forgotten, right? And now they worship the image of the beast as their Messiah or their anointed one. All right. I accepted Baabaa. I didn't accept you. I don't even know you. All right. The one who pretends to be God or the son of God. All right. So that's what the people could say when Nanar comes. And Nanar says, I came to take over your people and strike your nations down and rule you by force. All right. Then you say, I don't know you. And then you make sure you have your own connection. You hold on to that rope and you never let go. All right. Because you have your own rope. Each one, in the stories, the parables of Yanun, it's a book of stories, and it talks about how there was people in the ocean or the moving waters, and they were holding on to the rope. They was like, I'm drowning, or whatever they were saying. And then Baba threw ropes into the water. And each rope was supposed to be for each person, but some people would get scared and they would grab two ropes. And then he would make Baba have, that person would make Baba have to work harder, but you grab to your own rope. All right. So now we're going to read Ezekiel chapter 28, verses 14. Thou art the anointed cherub that covereth, and I have set thee so. Thou wast upon the holy mountain of God. Thou hast walked up and down in the midst of the stone of fire. That's in the King James Version. 389. Above all, this is our new standing, as is in front of the sun, blocking the great craft. All right. So I had mentioned yesterday in the Art of War. All right. Sun Tzu, written by Sun Tzu. All right. 389. So 389, write this down. Page 73 of this scroll. God of light and fire. Above all, this is Anu standing, as is the front of the sun. Blocking is that great craft. All right. Sun Tzu, one of the Art of War, one of the tips is that you stand in front of the sun. So you find the source of the sun, and when you go to war, and you make sure that you stand in front of the sun, because what will happen is that as the other army is approaching you, they face the light, and the light will blind them because they won't be able to see you as well. Then you could take them out. So you see right here in verse 389, Anu is using that same tactic. All right. And that's one of the books Bob recommends to read, by the way, because he does have a recommended reading list. All right. So above all, that is Anu standing as in front of the sun, blocking in that great craft. 390. He called out to the bird like crafts that were flying with Nanar. Nanar is also sin. It is time to come and gather together for the great supper of cherub and karabu, or cherubim. All right. So also in another update, Baba had said during Trump's first presidency, Baba has said in Trump's second presidency that he has been chosen to build the temple for Nanar. So now you see Nanar is about gathering for the great supper. All right. So now 392. So now go forth and eat the flesh of the rulers of earth. 393. And eat the flesh of the generals, the war makers and their officers. Eat them all. And all the rich, the mighty, who is behind the politicians, the law enforcers, eat their flesh too. And eat and the flesh of the entire Adamite race, from Adam to Ahmed. All right. So you're talking about that whole bloodline, the Adamite race and Ahmed. All right. Now, if you're still claiming to be Islamic, you know that you're tying back into that family. All right. You're well within the dominion to be eaten. All right. So it's like, I'm going to give back Christianity because I want something with our own culture. I'm going to go to Islam. All right. It's another trap. All right. Because why? It's slated to be food. And it was Trump that Baba said. So we're going to see it within it's going to get real in the next 3 years, or 4 years, that these beings are coming to eat. And it's Trump's responsibility to get that landing site for Nanar. All right. It was our responsibility to build the temple for Yanun. The temple for Yanun was supposed to be the safe zones. What we're going to do now, we'll see. And we were given that task a long time ago. So we'll see who builds whose site, who builds whose first. All right. And where everybody ends up falling. All right. So it's our own decision. All right. In the decision scroll, that's one of Baba's other scrolls. It's called the decision. We're in those times. All right. And every decision is what do you call that? Fulfillment. It's about your fate. All right. And we're about fate, not faith. All right. Surely the source Allah did choose Adam and Noach, the family of Abraham and the family of Abram, over all other insights of the known worlds. That's translated by Isa al-Hadi Ahmadi. Asaid Isa al-Hadi Ahmadi. 396. The well-to-do Caucasoids and the poor Caucasoids, eat them all. They are white and ripe. All right, so they are all bred for bread. All right, they have served their purpose, and now that their expiration time has come, why let such good flesh go to waste? All right, so it's the only thing that they have left to fulfill is being on someone's plate, which is very interesting because there is a community of people that not only are cannibalistic, but they want to also be eaten. All right, and it's starting to come out in even the pornography. All right, John chapter 4 verses 32 to 35. But he said unto them, I have meat to eat that ye know not of. Therefore said the disciples one to another, hath any man brought him aught to eat? Jesus said unto them, My meat is to do the will of him that sent me, and to finish his work. Say not ye, there are yet 4 months, and then cometh harvest. Behold, I say unto you, lift up your eyes and look on the fields, for they are white already to harvest. All right. So now you realize that Baabaa said that Earth is seen as a farm by some extraterrestrials because some of them came here to breed specifically just to eat. All right. And also for whatever resources that they wanted. All right. And then they've been looking on. And it's like when you're a farmer and you're growing something or you're breeding animals, it's not time to eat it yet. All right. So you go check. Or if you're having a fruit and it's like you're waiting for it to ripe, you have to eat it at the right time so you could enjoy it the best. All right. So now they are ready for harvest. All right. And then I also think about how when we talk about the shepherd and the sheep follows the shepherd's voice, what does the shepherd do with the sheep eventually? Leads them to slaughter. All right. So just thinking about that. 397. Next comes the Draconians who rule the earth, called the beast, Leviathan, and the armies of the earth, to make a war between fire and light. Yet their leader was captured, and with him the lying false prophet, religious leaders of the religions of Abraham, Mosesism, Jesusism, Mohammedism. First Kings, Mohammedism, and their miraculous signs on the devil's behalf. All right. First Kings chapter 22, verses 21 through 23 reads, And there come forth a spirit that stood before the Lord and said, I will persuade him. And the Lord said unto him, Wherewith? And he said, I will go forth, and I will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And he said, Thou shalt persuade him, and prevail also, and go forth and do so. Now therefore, behold, the Lord hath put a lying spirit in the mouth of all thy prophets, and the Lord hath spoken evil concerning thee. That's King James Version, the Bible. All right. So now we're in Ezekiel. All right, so now we're talking about the lying spirits. Now, why would the Lord want to do that? Why would the Lord put a lying spirit in people's mouths? Why wouldn't the Lord just make people tell the truth? All right, Ezekiel chapter 14, verses 9. And if the prophet be deceived when he has spoken a thing, the Lord have deceived thy prophet, and I will stretch out my hand upon him and destroy him from the midst of my people Israel. In Revelations chapter 18, verses 24 through verses 23 and 24, it reads, and the light of the candle shall shine no more at all. So that, let me see how it looks. So we're in Revelations chapter 18, verses 23 and 24, which reads, and the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorcerers were all nations deceived, and in her was found the blood of prophets and of saints and of all that were slain upon the earth. All right. So it sounds like a nation that the light is going off. All right. So every light eventually goes off. All right. Because all lights eventually burn out. The same way sons are born, sons eventually die. All right. And new sons are being born every day. All right. So that's the finite existence. So the sun has set on that nation that they're talking about. So there'll be no more brides and bridegrooms coming together. All right. And this nation has been found to have consumed prophets and saints. That's the King James Version. All right. 399. By the tricks of signs called magic or miracles, he deceived many and had deluded those who had received the mark of the beast and worshipped his image. All right. Through the signs of magic and miracles. All right. So what did Anu do on page 73, verse 389? Anu stood in front of the sun. All right. So it's all about the trick of light, perception and deception. All right. Because if you can control someone's perception, you can control them. All right. What they see, unless that person is an animist, because an animist takes into account An animist takes into account not just what appears, but the animist investigates, all right, behind, all right. So what animism is defined by as the natural phenomenon that animates the physical world that we see, all right. So it goes behind the natural phenomenon behind it, all right. So we're going to know, well, how did that come about? Well, how did that happen? When did that happen? When was that said? Okay, how did that grow about? The same way that Baabaa shows through the lineage of Abraham, the crossing over and who came from who and what happened and the politics that happened and who turned on who and when did they come back together, all right? Because then you'll see, okay, well, how that image came about, all right? Because, like, for example, you may have two images that look similar. And I went to, for example, I went to a museum. Yeah, it was a museum, but it happened to have live animals in it. And they put two snakes together, but they looked identical. But the reality that those snakes aren't actually related. And if you take they're not really that related. Two different events came about and it led to the same appearance. All right. But they did have a different story behind both of them. But they were two completely different species of snakes found in different parts of the world that actually aren't related. All right. Outside of just being snakes. So the museum, it was explaining on that exhibit how sometimes different events can appear a similar appearance, can create a similar appearance. All right. So by miracles and magic, you cannot fool an animus. All right. So 399, by the tricks and signs called magic or miracles, he deceived many and had deluded those who had received the mark of the beast and worshipped his image. In Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 and 27 reads, and God said, let us make man in our image and after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. That's the King James Version. And in Genesis chapter 4, verses 5, it reads, and God said unto him, therefore, whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord set a mark upon Cain, lest any find him should kill him. We're talking about Cain and Abel. All right. When Cain killed Abel, and then he was so scared. And then he was scared that because they were banishing him to the land of Nod. And then Cain said, but they're going to kill me. So then he was given some type of marking and saying, whoever hurts you, then they're going to get the same treatment that they gave you times 7. All right. But that story within itself should make us question, well, if it was just if Adam and Eve were the first people and Cain and Abel were their 2 children and one killed the other and he was sent away, he shouldn't be afraid of anyone killing him because there's nobody else. All right. So that already shows a hole in the story. And typically liars, they're not consistent because you can always find something that's off. So that wouldn't make sense. All right. But we have been programmed to not critically think for so long. All right. Not to ask questions, just accept me. And if you don't accept it, you're a bad Christian and you're going to go to hell. All right. If you don't accept it because I said so, then you're not such and such. All right. And that's how we were stuck under the spell for so long, because we were afraid to go to hell, because I didn't want to just, if I was thinking it, then I'm betraying God somehow. All right. And that's how you shut down someone's critical thinking. All right. So 400, the 2 of them, lawmen of police, the lawmen of political laws and religious men of religious laws, both of them were to be cast alive into the great vats burning with sulfur, to be cooked as offerings. And the rest of the seed of the Adamites were killed with the lasan tongue of the mouth of Nanar's cherub that is eaten. All the bird-like crabs gorged them on their flesh, gorged themselves on their flesh. And Revelations 20 speaks of 6,000th year in the year 100 or the 7th day. So the reality, Baabaa explained that we're not, well, biologically we shouldn't be on the menu. Like Nagaru are not on the menu. All right. Now, what happened to us as half souls, some of us picked up that genetics. So some of our genetics may be on the menu. However, you get protections in your Nagaru, and living our culture helps to activate our Nagaru genetics, which helps to shield us. All right. And that's what this chant is all about. This chant, prayer number 3. No. Let me see which prayer would be more. Yeah. Prayer number 3 and 4. All right. So now that you're reading the scroll, you go back and do the prayer, and you realize you're not just chanting for outside forces, you're also chanting for the inside forces within you. All right. So it says, O overseers, our ancestors, guard us from the wicked ones. Guard us from ignorance. Guard us, O overseers, guard us from becoming changed. Guard me, guard us. Guard us, guard me. All right. Our overseers. All right. So when we talk about our ancestors, guard us from the wicked ones. Some of the wicked ones became our ancestors too. So now it's both in our genetics. There's a genetic war within many of us. And depending on which one is on which one's activated, all right. By the time it's time to come and eat, all right. You know, it's all free game. What is it called? Fair game. Fair game. Unless you have that guidance. So we asking for what? Guard me, all right? Because these beings are coming to eat. So and the rest of the sea, the Adamites were killed with the Lasan tongue of the mouth of Nanar's cherub that is eaten. All the bird-like crabs gorge themselves on their flesh. All right. Now you could be off the menu. Like let's say you didn't have any of the you don't have any of the markers. So you're completely off the radar genetically, right? But then the things you consume, the beliefs that you have, all right? Such as this. See this lady with all her melanin, and she's eating those crackers from the crackers, all right? She's putting herself she's opening herself vibrationally, all right? So by her very vibrations, she's not under the protections of her own natural protections. So she's forfeiting them, all right? And in Revelations 20, it speaks of 6,000th year and the year 1,000 or the seventh day. The day it all desists in or rest. The Mutyad Mutatalu extraterrestrials of Adamites will be blocked from coming to Earth again for 1,000 years, which is one day in their time. 405. And Revelation 21 speaks to the return of Nibiru, the mother crab. And Revelation 22 speaks at the end of their judgment and the return of the bright star Venus, Lucifer, yet has no power over our own race, Nagaru, Negroids. All right. So we've been looking for Nibiru, the ship of the crossing. And a lot of people in the hereafter doctrine and like maybe a little earlier, people were coming to fight in here because they kept talking about the holy tablets. And I have the holy tablets right here. It's not that I didn't read it, but it's like when I read this, I'm like, we have to upgrade and get out of there because Nibiru is not, those crafts aren't even for us. So for those of us who can't graduate, they're going to be waiting for Inky's people and Enlil's people, and they coming to eat. All right. Because Baba gave us more information. All right. So Revelations 22 speaks of the end of their judgment and the return of the bright morning star Lucifer, yet has no power over our own race, Panagaru Negroids, unless they as Negroids live in his image. Then he comes for their Ba'a, soul, and Jasad flesh. All right. So they will feed off your soul and then feed off your flesh. All right. And I think about how they use, like, just look at the entertainers here. For the longest time, they used the creativity, whether it was used in a bad way or a good way. They used the creativity of our Nagaru, you know, our Nagaru people. And they use them up, and use them up. And when they finish with them, they spit them out and throw them away. All right. After all the destruction, how much drugs Jay-Z glorified selling. All right. and how much big pimping, all right, that there was glorified, all right, and how much single ladies, all the single ladies, is glorified, all right. Guess what? They're still coming to take their image at the end of the day, so they suck them up when they don't have any use for them, and then they uh take them down, all right. So they feed off of the soul and then the flesh, all right. 408. What you hear and see in the skies above and the weather around you is the ongoing war of God, of Nawar, lights, and Nawar, fire. The seed of Adam, Pala ben Salal, the white race, or Haradu, children of the lights. Know their 6,000 year ended in the year 2000 AD, and that we are in the first 1,000 years of the next 6,000 year of the 4 cycle system of 6,000 years on up to 24,000 years. All right. So we're talking about the end of the moon cycle, because you have 2 moon cycles and 2 sun cycles. So the last moon cycle just ended in the year 2000. But of course, it's not like a switch that goes off and on. It's like any other day or season. It graduates. So even though the moon cycle is done, the influences, we're still under some of the influences is still there. But you see, it's the sun is burning away those illusions. All right. So now you see things for what they are, and then everything gets lifted back up. All right. So we are now recording our story. They live in fear and only wish to destroy all others with themselves. So if I can't have it, neither can you. All right. So instead of them bowing out like, oh, it's our time, let us let these other people build. No, they want to take us all with them. All right. Destroy yourselves. All right. Because we're on our way out. And still, there's also a part of them that's looking for glitches. They're looking for ways. They don't have any more extensions though, but they're looking for ways possibly that they could bypass their fate. They're looking for ways. So that's what the Elon Musk projects are about, and it's no mistake that Elon Musk and Trump is working together. All right, because Elon Musk is about finding other existable planets like Mars, and then Trump, he's been tasked with building the Temple for Nanar as the landing site. All right, but Nanar we see is coming to eat. All right, so now if they can put as many of us, all right, and offer as many of us up, maybe they could show that they're still useful. That's what they're thinking. All right. So they're like, well, we still have control over everybody else. Look, you still need us. That's what they're hoping to do. All right. But the reality, they'll still be in anyway. And so will what they're being offered. And those of us who are still buying into the image. And that's why Bob is trying to unmingling us in time. So that's why we're getting this information out, so people can make their decision. All right. All right. So now the Negroids, all right, so it tells you they have no power. So listen to this. In Revelation 22, speaks of the end of their judgment and the return of the bright morning star Venus, Lucifer, yet has no power over our own race, Panagaru Negroids, unless they as Negroids live in his image. Then he comes for their Ba, soul, and Jasad flesh. All right. So you're supposed to be their scapegoat. You still need us. All right. And we need you to deal with us because we have everybody still under our spell. But it's not true. All right. In pockets, it's true. All right. But it's falling away. So what you hear and see in the skies above and the weather around you is the ongoing war of good, Nawar, light, and fire. The seed of Adam, Palaben. All right, so we talked about the fourth, the end of their time at 2000 and the 6,000 years. All right, which equals 24,000 in total. All right, and now we are recording our story, and they live in fear and only wish to destroy all others with themselves. And he is no more, no less than one of many Anunnaki, Anakim that comes for their flesh. All right. So Lucifer, for example, is just one of the many Anunnaki that likes to eat, and that's coming to eat. 4:13, their rapture is on, and the feast of their God and his son. That is abduction by the millions of them. All right. So that's where a lot of the abductions are going. And they don't care really what race. I mean, it's about the Adamites, but at the end of the day, meat is meat. All right. That's why they eat all kinds of meat, birds, fish, whatever. All right. And if you don't know who you are, great. They'll eat you too. All right. And all this abductions. And Baba said, if you notice that it wasn't really Nagaru being abducted, he said to think about it. He said, maybe you had somebody advocating on your behalf of why you didn't get abducted. All right. And that's why he has said not too long ago, don't give your DNA to those ancestry websites, because in reality, some of those websites were extraterrestrial purposes, because they're looking for certain beings. And he said, when you guys start getting abducted, don't come looking for him, because he already warned you. That's what he has said as a joke, right? And then also those ancestry, they're not really accurate in the sense that it talks about who's there now. All right. So it says, oh, by my genetics, it says that I'm such and such. All right. So it's not taking into account the politics. All right. Because we're not talking about the origins of people. All right. So 4:14, their end has finally come, and now they fade little by little. Now that their 6,000 years ended in the year 2000 AD, and they see and feel that they lost world dominion or domination, and they live in total khawf, fear. All right. So now Baba drew the cycles for you and how it looks. All right. So you have the first one, Nagaru. First Nagaru, 9 ether, Javadu, Mugalu. All right. So there goes you also see the depiction of the original races. So you have at first Nagaru, all right? That's the first sun cycle. Then you had the first moon cycle, which was birth of the Javadu, all right? Then that lasted for 6,000 years. Then you have birth of the Mangalu, all right? And that lasted for 6,000 years. Then you have birth of the Adamites, all right? But notice that it's the only one going against nature, all right? So you have the Sanskrit. All right. You have the Sanskrit image, all right? That looks like the swastika, all right? But it's originally, it really is the Sanskrit's image. And what it's supposed to depict is depicting being in harmony with nature and the different cycles and seasons. And then who comes and inverts it? When they inverted it, they turned it into the swastika and taking dominions over all other races and going against nature. So that's also what this depicts. All right. So notice that they're the only ones going in this direction. All right. They're the only ones going in that direction. So they go against nature. All right. So their time is up. and they weren't able to harmonize because even though there's a change each time, to each its own, they're all different. The other races lived in harmony. All right, there's a change, but it harmonized. All right, this one gave way, give way, give way, give way. This one doesn't know how to give way, so it doesn't get to keep existing. All right, whereas you see, like unlike the other races, Nagaru, when it was time to give way to the Javaru, it was still a harmony. So when Javaru came onto the scene, all right, when Javaru came onto the scene, the Nagaru continued to exist. So it just existed in another cycle. Then when Magalu came onto the scene, all right, even though it was different, they were still in harmony and it still existed. Then the Adamu came onto the scene, and they are a danger to all others. So they push against us. So what ends up happening, they end up getting wiped out when we renew our time. All right. So they had the opportunity, if they could get along with all others, they might have been able to uh to make the shift, but they couldn't. All right. It's just not programmed in their unnatural genes to do so, as Bob explains in other scrolls. So the cycle of this 24,000 years, it began 24,000 counterclockwise. The way water drains. All right. So water drains to be counterclockwise. And then you have materialization and dematerialization. Bob explains in other scrolls of that swirl. So counterclockwise is materialization and dematerialization. All right. So it began. Oh, and this Celtic woman, she called herself a Celtic. She was Irish. And then we learned about Celtic history and Celtic pride. But she was also very fascinated with Native American stories. So she told also stories about Native American. And the Native American had a creation story, which was very interesting. And she was telling the rest of us the creation story for the Native Americans. And this is the creation story that they tell. In the beginning, God created three races. He took black clay. He took, I forgot the colors, but I know black clay was there. Another color clay was there. And then another color clay. But it seemed unbalanced. I know yellow clay was there, but I can't remember if they said red clay or if they said brown clay. But it was black clay, let's just say red clay and yellow clay. And those were the races of people. So black was supposed to represent the black race. You had the red race, which was like the Indians or the brown people. They didn't say brown, but the red race, the Indians. All right. And then you had the Asians, and that's their story, or their creation story. But then God likes things to be balanced. That's and then so he just took a random piece of white clay. The other ones he took the time. And then the last group of people to be made was from the white clay, just a piece of white clay. He just molded real fast and threw together. And that's why they have a weird nature that doesn't really harmonize, because it was a last minute thought. And I just remember, like, for her, how she felt, but it's like the story resonated to her because there's a part of her that feels incomplete. And then I was the only Nagaru person in that class. Everybody else was white. And then I looked around, I'm like, that sounds about right. But I looked at the shame in everyone's faces. And it's like they know something is off about them. Like they know. And it just caused the silence. All right. So 414. And I don't remember which tribe, but it would be interesting to see, who told that story. So 414, their end has finally come, and they fade little by little. Now that their 6,000 year ended in the year 2000 AD, and they see and feel that they have lost world domination, they live in total khawf. Khawf. Khawf is fear. Khawaf. Khawaf is fear. They live in khawaf, fear. Nowadays, UFO and USO, unidentified submerged objects. So unidentified flying objects and unidentified submerged objects. All right. Because scientists say they know more about the skies than they know about their own oceans. All right. So UFOs and USOs are taped because so many people have phones with cameras. Because of high technology, people tape Tayaf ghosts and orbs and shadow people. They tape talking by those who are Mawuta, dead, and they tell them they are trapped and can't cross over. All right. So their technology, because Bible said in time, technology is going to confirm certain things. Because as we learn, that energy is just, it just exists on different densities. All right. And Bible said in time, they'll confirm certain things. All right. And they're already starting to do that. All right. Because some of the technology is able to pick up certain frequencies. And also because we have cameras, you can capture something that you saw that before people would just tell you and they just sounded crazy. All right. Others claim they are attached and they don't want to cross over. All right. So some are trapped and they can't cross over, and some are attached and they don't want to cross over. And others people come to realize are non-human. Most of these are muzyad mutatalu, extraterrestrials, mistaken in religion as devils or demons. All right. So you have disembodied spirits people come across, and then you have other type of beings and non-human entities, and some of them are not earthlings, and then they just call them devils and demons, but really they're just nothing more than an extraterrestrial. Yet they will look upward for God and Yahweh, Allah, Dios, for some kind of return of God, Son of God, angelic being. Just as Elijah and Moses returned and seen with Jesus by his disciples in Matthew chapter 17, verses 1 through 3. It reads, and after 6 days, Jesus taketh Peter, James, and John, his brother, and bringeth them into a high mountain apart, and was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and his raiments were white as light. And behold, there appeared unto them Moses and Elias talking with them. All right. Just as Elijah and Moses returned and was seen by Jesus with his disciples. These are different examples. All right. So now we're going to read the other example. Mark chapter 9, verses 2 through 4. All right. Which reads, and after 6 days, Jesus taketh with him Peter and James and John, and leadeth them up into a high mountain apart by themselves. And he was transfigured before them. And his remnant became shining, exceedingly white as snow, so as no fuller on earth can white them. And there appeared unto them Elias and Moses, and they were talking with Jesus. And in Luke chapter 9, verses 28 through 30, it reads, and it came to pass about an 8th day after these sayings, he took Peter and John and James, and went up into the mountain to pray. And as he prayed, and fashion with his countenance was altered, and his remnant was white and glistening. And behold, he talked with 2 men, which were Moses and Elias. So in Abrahamism, be they Jew, Christian, or Muslim, they look upward and await for the return from above. In Revelations 21, it explains it's a mothercraft, the Kadam ancient Shinar or Sumar or Shamar, all right, Sham. Sumerians called it Nibiru, and it's crossing the sky. And found in the tablet Enuma Elish states the planets of Anu, Naki, becomes the Kawak planets of crossing. It says, planet Nibiru, the crossroads of heaven and earth, it shall occupy planet Nibiru. The central position it holds, planet Nibiru. It is he who, without tiring in the midst of Tiamat earth, keeps crossing, let crossing be its name. All right. So now one thing Baba was saying as well, that this is bringing back some memories of like that as he's teaching, like some things he was like, I can't say, but I will. I can only say but so much, because as I'm teaching you, I'm also teaching the devil. All right. And then we always thought it was like, maybe it was like a government agency, you know, maybe it's somebody taping him. We didn't consider that maybe it's people amongst us, you know. And the reality is that some of us are devils, you know, as it says in the Black Devil's book. So with that being stated, he said that you can't, he said, why can't we just stop the devil? He said, you can't stop the devil because the devil is an angel. All right. He said, what you have to do, you trap the devil. All right. And now I'm starting to see certain traps that I would love for none of us to get trapped inside of them. So the first thing you have to contend is with your own ego. All right. And the need to want to be important. That's one of the biggest traps. And then the second thing that will be very helpful as well is when you see so many people that they talk about they're the true light, or they're going to go to Nibiru, or they saw this ship, or somebody else, they was like, I spoke to aliens and they were from Pleiades, but they were Africanoid. All right. And then you could see, because Baba said that why he changes so much, because you can't trap him. He said, because by the time you think that you figured him out, he'll change on you. All right. So now you'll be able to tell what school people came from, all right, by how they talk. And then you'll notice that these schools were actually intended to do exactly what it is doing today. And now that I'm like reading these books and you see what the plan is and what people are doing and what's going on these crafts behind the facade, because it's really facades that we're looking at. That many of our own people are going to take us to be food. And that's why Baba kept saying in around 2010, around that time, he kept saying, don't be food for the gods. Don't be food for the gods. Don't be food for the gods. And a lot of us are going to feed ourselves to the God, and not just that, the gods. And we're going to also talk about extraterrestrials, and we're going to be offering each other up. All right. Because, of whatever the case. All right. So now when Bob is telling us about, he's telling us about, okay, we're going, first he said Nuapians. First he has said this, and then he's saying that, and then he's changing again. He also warned that the constant has changed, and it will possibly change again. I remember him saying that, because the reason why I remember him saying that, because I came right when Nuapu was first being used. And I remember thinking to myself, well, if it's going to change again, what's the purpose of learning all this? That's just what I thought, right? So now when it changed, I was like, okay, Wusabat, all right? And what happens is that each change is a drop-off point, all right? And it's not to say it won't change again. So don't think that you don't have you have it figured out. That's why Baba said, stay close to me, because a lot has been done to us and he's dispelling so much. And some people get a little bit and they run with it. All right. And they're running right into the crafts in some shape or form, all right, to destroy their lives, and whether it's figuratively or physically or some type of way. And I notice so many Baba students, all right. Some of them that say they're Bible students and some of them that don't. Because once you start studying, you start recognizing, Baba's stuff. All right. So I noticed certain verbiage that some people are using, true light, certain people that fights that people are starting to try to make between people, for what reason? All right. So these are warnings for yourself. And the biggest warning is to keep your ego and to acknowledge that you do have one, and it's okay. All right, that you have one. But just uh keep an eye on it. All right. And that's the best thing I could say. Um from my experiences lately. All right. And also make that connection with yourself and stop being starstruck. Baba has said, stop being starstruck. All right. So you think somebody's important. That's why I show people towards the scrolls, because sometimes to people who just studying, I sound so deep. And I'm only sounding deep because I read it first. All right. And then once you get plugged in, you could tap directly into Baba so you can activate what you need to, because I don't know everything and where Baba's taking us in totality. All right. So that's what I could say. All right. So let's continue. So the mother craft, we're on page 80 and we're almost done. 426 is the verse. So the mother craft, and I want to make one more statement. And I refuse to be responsible for having played with anybody's soul. I'm not taking that on me. All right. So that's one thing. Now, if you follow me over Baba, that's you. All right. I didn't ask you to. All right. But some people, by their genetics, are followers. I can't help that. All right. But you want to make that connection with Baba. All right. Some people, they just, they just want to feed off of the work that the other person did. And that's if you decide to do that's on you. All right. All right. So 426. So the mother craft called a planet is recorded on stone tablets to cross and keep crossing past planet Earth, which the Sumerians called Tiamat every 3,600 years. That was by the Sumerian calendar. In the Muslims' holy book, the Quran, there is a chapter called At-Tariq. They translate it as that which comes at night, yet the word means the way. In the 86th chapter today, yet originally the 36th chapter, it was 17 verses and speaks of the coming of Ni'ibru. Okay, Ni'ibru. That's how Baba writes it. So it's N, even though it spells Nibiru, N dot IBIR.U. All right. Now remember, Baba has already linked that word to crossing over to Eber, and then also Eber and Hebrew having the same root word, also meaning to cross over. So now you see whose agenda or whose people is linked up to that. It has 17 verses and speaks of the coming of Nibiru or Ni'ibru. 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 All right. So of its coming, now the chapter 85, originally the 27th chapter, is called Al-Baruj. 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 Baruj. They translate it to means the great stars, as explained as the planets or their high positions in heaven. All right. Here's Nibiru. All right. And it's in the holy tablets. Okay, after you read the actual facts, if you want to go back and read the holy tablets again, and it could be very helpful. All right, but get started here and hereafter. So you see all the different crystals, the emerald and all that, the solar panels, the hologram beam. Take note of this. Hologram beam. So there's a laser that can depict a hologram. All right. So what are holograms needed for those who are not perpetrating some type of illusions? So that also tells you about their nature too. All right. So you have a hologram being. You can make a hologram. All right. And a hologram could appear 3D. All right. So a hologram, if it's very an advanced technology, which I would assume that they are very advanced, that it should appear very natural. It should look like, if they make a hologram of me, it should look like me, just like they made a hologram Tupac concert. And it looked like Tupac was dancing on the stage and singing. 433. It has 22 verses, as you see in verse 22. In Arabic, it states 21. However, it is a majestic Quran reading. All right. Baabaa explained that Quran means reading. Inside guarded stone tablets. So the Quran says the Quran is from stone tablets. And this states to the Sumerian tablets. And this relates to the Sumerian tablets. All right. So the Quran is from stone tablets and it relates to the Sumerian tablets. So they were talking about the Sumerian tablets. And the chapter after of accounting of time, watching and witnessing, yet Muslims have no idea what the Quran is speaking about. They lost their true meaning long ago. All right. So now you see, and that was the purpose, because you see that the beings they deal with wants to confuse them anyway. All right. Its original Lahaj language, they don't have not one original Quran, only what men and women claim they remember of it. These are the works of God of light and fire. All right. So those are the works of the God of light and fire. All right. Or illusionists. Illusionists. So when somebody says that they're the God of light and fire, now you know another word you can use is an illusionist. And what is an illusionist? In other words, to say a magician. All right. And then if you have time, because Baba used to I heard that he used to sometimes get magicians and illusionists to come and do performances. All right. And people like being entertained and mystified. And that's one thing Baba said. He said, one thing about the black race, Nagaru, you guys love being mystified. All right. The spookier, the heavier, the deeper it sounds, the more you love it, the more practical and simple you're not interested. All right. So the magicians, the illusionists, or the smoking screens. All right. The word of Baabaa Yaanun, who incarnate amongst us, Pa Karadu, Pa Nadaru, the children of the overseers. 55 years before 2000 AD, the end of 6,000 years. All right, so that'd be 1945. All right, because 2000 minus 55, that's 1945, which happens to be when Baba was born. All right, 25 years before the year 1970. All right, opening of the seventh seal. All right, and our own Salafu ancestors warned us, Nuwapians, 18 years from our own Ladud birth, 1963 AD, with Wu Nuwap, yet you were not ready and had much learning to do first. All right. So Baba at first, at 18 years old, all right, he would have in 1963, that would make him around 18. When he went around and he was trying to talk to people about what he knows now, what he's teaching us now, they were not interested. All right. Who is it? No, thank you. No, thank you. No, I'm busy. All right. Have a good one. Oh, that's Mooney. All right. So 18 years from my own Ladud birth. So he was 18 years old, 1963. And People don't want to hear about that because they think they're doing something wrong. They want to hear about Muhammad. They want to hear about Jesus. All right. They want to hear about that, right? So he said he had to give them what they wanted till they learn to want what they have to give. But what's great after 2000, all right? After 2000, the genes are already primed, all right, to be accepting because sometimes the information just went over the head. But this new generation, they're ready for it. And then the older generation, they should have been raised to be able to digest this information. So it's like sometimes if you have baby food before you could digest adult food, and you try to feed somebody who doesn't have a well-made digestive system yet, they won't digest the food properly. All right. So your digestion should have been raised by now. All right. To be able to comprehend. Right. So a lot of us when we first picked, because I remember reading one of the scrolls, Genetic Kiss. I gotta be honest, first time I read Genetic Kiss, I did not know what I read. It just kind of went over my head. But for some reason, after I read that book, I had a dream. It was and it made sense. So I'm like, at least subconsciously, I understood. So then later on, I guess it just scrambled my head. I didn't know. So now in time, it was just too fresh. All right. So they have much learning to do. So in 1963 with Wu Nawab, all right. So he first brought it out in 1963. Y'all were not ready. Okay. Talking about we were not ready. We had much learning to do first. Our own Salafu ancestors said, Pa Karadu M Adamu, the children of Adam, the habitation of the new Babel of Saddam, land of the fourth son of Canaan, who was Amor, first father of the Amorites. The land became Amoritia or America. All right. So look at it. We even wanted to be called Adamites. All right. So their time after 400 years from 6000 AD, they will mourn, cry, and will wither. And Anunun Salafu, that's our own ancestors, spoke on Anunun Salel, our own race, and said, for your transgressions as slaves of mental death, trying to live in the image of the beast, we will turn away and ignore you, as you ignore us. When we did send Baabaa Yaanun, the master teacher Yanun, as your Mundar or your warner, Muhdai, guide, to reform you all inside out and outside in. Because they have threshed Yananan with threshing of their own words, of their famamats, mouths. All right. All right. So, this is the warning, that our ancestors will turn away from us. All right. If we turn away from Baabaa Yaanun, why? Because we've been turned away from our ancestors for the longest, chasing somebody. We're chasing an abusive relationship for people who are just abusing us, and we're trying to be like them, hoping that they'll accept us, ignoring our ancestors. Then Baabaa Yaanun comes away and says, I have some information that's going to help you, and you could reform yourself. All right. So, but then you say, I don't want to hear what you have to say. I want to keep chasing after my oppressor. All right. In some shape or form. All right. So then, so then we are rejecting our own salvation. All right. So, and on the Amorites of Canaan, their own makers will send light and fire, storms and floods, tornadoes and hurricanes and tsunamis, famines and droughts, and among their youth, insanities of many kinds. So many people are losing their minds. All right. And if you're not careful, you'll lose your mind too. All right. That's why it's important to ask questions and study daily, take care of your health, eat properly, be kind to people so that you can have a clear conscience and such. Be kind to yourself. And that's very, very helpful. All right. So insanities of many kinds. All right. And if you look around, so many people are just dealing with things. All right. Wars, killings, diseases, sicknesses, viruses among them, to once again attempt to rape the last species of humanoids, the Laben Salau, to wipe. It's supposed to say wipe. It says rape here. All right. That's a typo. So if you have this book, just put wipe. All right. All right. These are Baaba's words, but there are people who type it up and put it into book form. So wars, killings, diseases, sicknesses, and viruses upon them to once again attempt to wipe the last species of humanoids, the Laben Salau white race, off Pa Kawak, the planet, making them extinct. 449. For their 6,000 year of dominion did end in the year 2000 AD. And you, 6,000 years of being a stranger in a Sakar land, once your own ended. 1,600 plus 400 equals 2,000. All right. So 400 years of slavery. All right. Mental slavery. All right. In the West. All right. It's longer in the East. All right. You were put on this part of the Kawak planet, now called North and South America, long before the Asians, Africans, and South Americans, long before the coming of Asians, Africans, and Europeans, or sons of Canaan, and his consort, Hittara, mother of Ammar. All right, so we're going to clarify what that means. All right, we're going to see if Baabaa clarifies it. All right, before I ask any questions. All right. So 451 I circled. All right. So 452. These Kahanu Canaanites are the Laben Salah white race. Laben or Cain, son of Cam, was cursed with the plague of Barasi or leprosy in Genesis chapter 9, verses 25 through 27. Let's see. Okay. Through 27. And let's see. Okay. And it reads, and he said, cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be to his brethren. And he said, bless the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. All right. And then in Genesis, the white race is being judged right now. Okay. So Genesis chapter 24, verses 3. And I will make thee swear by the Lord, a God in heaven and the God on earth, that thou shalt not take a wife unto my son, the daughters of Canaanites, among whom they dwell. All right. There's a depiction of Canaan. All right. A depiction. Albino. And then in Genesis 24, verses 3, it reads, and I will make thee swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that thou shalt not take a wife unto my son of the daughters of Canaanites, among whom they dwell. All right. And then Baabaa shows, I don't know if these are real Pleiadians or from a movie or something, or a depiction, but here's a depiction or real Pleiadians, I don't know. All right. So these are a depiction of Pleiadians. All right. So 454, their makers, Pakaamu or Mukmahu, the Palladians, will devour what is left of them, eat the flesh from their dried bones, and drink and drain the nakah, bone, the marrow from their Adamite bones. All right. So you see the Palladians are also meat eaters. The Draconians, they're also meat eaters. All right. The Draconians are brain eaters. On top of that, they eat brains, as explained in the other scroll, the Melanite children. 455, they destroy their many palaces and will so break their ties with subraces that trusted in them and will be cut off from them. All right. So you got the subraces. Think of the subraces like Italians. That'll be a subrace. In the French, that'll be a subrace. All right. Those dark haired, even the Dominicans that they think they white. All right. Because they got dark hair. I'm talking about the Italians and the French. They got dark hair. So they're technically mulattoes. They're not really, they're a subrace. But they think they're white. So they will break off with those that trusted them, all right, the subraces, and will be cut off from them. 458, the inhabitants of the east, from Arabia to Persia, and those in Israel who hold the religious scepter from the enclosed garden of pleasures and delights, Eden, and their seed shall fall away. That is what the God of light and fire says of Adam's offspring. For your Jawed wicked and evil to all others, and your perversions and witchcrafts, your transgressions from Torah, the law, the gospel, and the Quran. And the funny thing is, as I'm reading this, in a way I'm saying, but that's not fair. I'm really saying that because their wicked makers made them that way, and then they judged them for being the way that they made them. All right, so they're dying by their own maker's hands. They bred them for a purpose. All right, it's a defective being, like they're defective makers, and then they are going to judge them and then destroy them. All right, so they get destroyed by their own hands. All right, so 461, we will not turn a blind eye to your punishments. And therefore, because you did carry away captives from their own lands and killed and raped and abused them 400 years and more, you entered others' lands and did rape, kill, and abuse them, even taking their wealth and claiming their lands as your own. But think about it. Didn't your God say to do that? I will take you into the promised lands because you are my own chosen people, and take and kill the men and take each woman that you choose for your own choice, and take what you want as you like pillage the land. I read this the Bible, and I remember reading that, and they were being promised, and you will be victorious. All right, because it seemed like they were always fighting somebody, and you will be victorious because I am your God, so fear no one. Right, something like that. And so I just find it funny. I'm just happy I'm not an Adamite to have a God like that. Right? It just seems very unjust. All right. So we will send blazing fires down upon you, and you cannot run and hide from us, and it shall burn many of you up. All right. Oh, by the way, this was written sometime in around 2016. It came out sometime around, all right? Just to give you an idea. It probably could have been written before then, but it was put out at that time. All right. So we will send blazing fires down upon you, and you cannot run and hide from us, and it shall burn many of you up. It shall burn and consume the palaces thereof, and we will cut off the inhabitants from all of your own lands, from where you did sail to other lands, with evil intentions. 467. And we will turn our yadatui hands against all offspring of Adam, whom we did make from our own genes, no matter whom they mixed with and where they dwell. Listen, that's where our ears should go up, right? And the remnants of the mulattoes who do follow in your ways. All right. So it doesn't matter. Like a lot of them think that by mixing in with us is going to save them. All right. It's only going to save them if the priests are the only ones who could save them. And the priests are the ones who have disciplined themselves, live our culture, and have the adequate genetics, etc., etc. Where is that talked about? Because what happens is that when one of us gets with them, all right, particularly a Nagato male, all right, and a lot of Nagato males are not, they're not vibrating. They're vibrating as Europeans, so it should, you know, a lot of us are very arrogant, and I'm like, but we're not vibrating that way. But let's just say a Nagato male who's vibrating on a Nagato scale, all right, so he gets with another race. What happens is that she can come up to 9 ether, all right? And then what happens though is that if they're not in our culture and submerged in our culture, she'll fall back down. Baabaa said that, all right? So a lot of them think that they will be able to mix in to maybe find glitches, because a lot of them that they're realizing, you know one who's very smart, who she's realizing, Jane Elliott. Jane Elliott, the one who did the blue eye, brown eye test or experiment. And then Jane Elliott, she recently said that the planet is getting hotter and hotter, and you're going to need some melanin in your skin. And pretty much the wise of them should be mixing in with melanated beings so that they could exist. All right. And that but it's not enough to just do that. All right. Because they have to be plugged in to, they can't be living as Adamites anymore. All right. So this is what, because of why, this is what it's going to say here. 468. The remnants of mulattoes who follow in your ways also will be judged with you as they accepted your mark. All right. So Bible calls us as half souls. So let's just call us here mulattoes, because a lot of us have those markers. That's why some of us died during COVID, because Baabaa had explained that COVID was after the Adamite genetics. Some of us have the Adamite genetics. All right. Certain blood types has certain protections. All right. So those who follow your ways will be judged with you, for they accepted your mark. All right. Your genetic mark. All right. And you and did also pursue your own brothers in other lands to fight and kill them, as Vikings, Anglos, Brits, Danes, Saxons, and Slavs. And they became 3 cults: Celtics, Celtics, and Celtics. All right. As you'll see in different depictions, no matter how, it's all the same. Whether you see some people spell it with the S, some people spell it with the K, and some people spell it with the C. All right. Those are all Celtics. You did pursue one another with sword, axe, and hammer by land and by sails. Foretold in times of old the jasad flesh with the life which is of your own Daman blood, you should not eat, and the blood of your own blood, of your lives, we will require at the Yadad hand of every living creature, and at the Yadad hand of Mudamu Adamites, and at the hand of every Adamite brother, will require the life of a man's kind. I understand now why they're getting judged. Because they were always being judged. Because that's what the Levite priesthood was all about. The Levite priesthood was to help them atone for their sins. And the Levite priesthood knew how to do the sacrifices perfectly. All right. So these gods always made them feel like they were doing the wrong thing because they always wanted to eat. Now there's nothing left to eat. So now they have judged them, and the final judgment is your food. All right. Because they've been doing that to them this whole time anyway. So you see the nature of that God anyway. And at the Yadad hand of Mudam with Adamites, and at the end of every Adamite's brother, we will require the life of mankind. 475. Whosoever sheds his own brother's blood, he shall also by his brother be killed, because you Adamites are in your own image and likeness, and kill and eat one of us. Oh, and you Adamites are in your own image and likeness, and kill and eat one of us. All right. But didn't this killing happen since their creation when Cain killed Abel? So now they should just keep killing each other? Because if you kill your brother, then now your next brother is going to kill you. Then somebody's going to have to kill him. Somebody else is going to have to kill him, because that's their order, right? And that should have been put into motion since Cain killed Abel. All right. So this we fear of you, as your Salafu ancestors did eat the flesh of one another, fight and kill each other. For this we plague you with the disease and death, and we did cast off all pity, and our anger will tear perpetually, as we will keep our wrath upon you until you are no more at all, because you impregnated the Zaztatu women, not your own, with child of genetic confusion, that they may serve you as gods. All right. So a lot of the biracial people, they deal with bipolar. All right. Bipolar is very, 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 very high in biracial people, especially biracials who have almost equal parts of both blood. There's a study on that. All right. Because what happens, they end up shifting on two poles that are actually not even harmonious. All right. And I had a little biracial boy that I used to babysit, and he has said something that he feels like there's two forces that's pulling on him, one that wants to do good and one that wants to do bad. And he articulated it very well, and I was very impressed. But I was like, yeah, all right. So you impregnated the Zazatatu women, not your own, with a genetic confusion, that they may serve you as gods. You are no Gadadu gods, no lords, no deity. You are less than man. You are a kind of man, a hybrid mutant. All right. So not only aren't they gods, they're less than man, because you need at least 6 ether to be able to be pulled up. All right. And it shows that even the Caucasus women and the Caucasus man don't even vibrate on the same plane. The male vibrates on 5. All right. Which is on the realm of like ape. And she vibrates on 6. All right. So it's even less than man. All right. So no, because of why? Why did that happen to them? Because of all the mixing in with all the animals. And that's why a lot of them practice bestiality. And when they started to breed them with the animals. So in Melanite, that book, The Melanite Race, the Supreme Race, it explains the breakup of the Adamite genetics. They do have some sands in it, because of the mitochondria. They still took sans DNA to create them. I was very, it explained a lot in that scroll. So Baba broke it down that they have the pig in their DNA, the dog, pig, the dog, the monkey in their gene. And then they also have the Palladians, no, the Draconians, then the Palladians, one or the other, and then Sans, in that order. So they have more animal DNA than anything else. They have more animal DNA than even Palladian and Draconian DNA. All right, so that's how they're put together. All right, so you're not even fully, they're mostly the beast man. So that's what Bob was talking about in the Bible when they talked about the beast of the field with sackcloth. They said, what animal do you know wears clothing? They were talking about the Caucasoids. All right. So you are no Gadadu gods, no Lord, no deities. You are less than man. You are a kind of man, a hybrid, mutant. No more, no less. For we made you of ourselves. Then did mix in your seed with the Kalab, canine, the Zakar, that's the porcine or the pig, and the Garab, the simian or the monkey. All right. Or the monkey. So you see right there. So these are their extraterrestrial gods are talking to them. We made you of our blood, and then we mixed in some animals with you. All right. As you are three beasts in one, Pa Kakasu, or the Mukasu, Caucasoids, the lion, cursed seed of the earth, creating only chaos, disease, and enmity between all others for your own jealousy of others. We will cut off your right to judge others, your right to rule others, your right to enslave and abuse others. In 1 hour, all you built will fall down and never rise again. I don't see how they're going to rebuild uh, Malibu and Hollywood, and I don't see how they're going to do that. And everything that's happening, I don't see, how they're going to resurrect. All right. You are despised and hated, yet think you're loved and respected by others. You only fool yourself, Caucasoids, or Mukasu, liar of liars, killers of killers. You despise our rule and regulations. You turned away from our laws. You are uncivilized on earth. Oh, there's a good episode. Oh, there's a good episode. It was in the Twilight Zone. In the Twilight Zone series. It was the black and white Twilight Zone. And in that episode, their overlords had come down, these extraterrestrials overlords who have been looking on and watching them the whole time. They came down and told the Adamites, because it was still white, it was a white extraterrestrial speaking to white people and their white governments. And they were about to go to war, but they ended up making peace because the overlords told them that we have judged you and we deem you to be defective or not good. And so they were like, well, just give us a day to fix up give us a day to correct ourselves. And it was like, you had all this time to correct yourself. And so then they said, fine, we'll give you a day. And then it's like they fixed themselves up, and then the overlord came back and said, all right, so what's new that was going to change your fate? And then they presented something, and it wasn't good enough, so their fate was already sealed. So that's the Twilight Zone episode. So you despise our rule and regulations, because they ended up being against the rule and regulations, but they were so confused because they don't even know how to follow the rule. That was the cruel irony in the episode. They didn't even really understand what was expected of them. All right. So you despised our rules and regulations. You turned away from our laws. You are uncivilized on earth. 489. You have not kept our 316 commandments as we ordered you, and you cause all others to err. You mixed in with giants after we, Sayuna, protected you from offerings. You as Amorites, before you became Mushashu, Israelites, whose height was like those in Lebanon, tall as cedars, the Raphaim and Emim, the Anakim, the Zamzimim, Pa Anunnaki, 492. As you journeyed in the wilderness by way of the Red Sea and with the Shaggies of Mount Seir, the children of Esau and Edomites, the Horims, were also flesh eaters. 493. 493. You from Canaanites, Shethites, Enosites, Huladuda, Berth, Giborites, Gabaru, or Mugbaru, wicked and evil in all they think, to Noah and his seed, and his son's son, Noah and his son's son, Canaan, and his sons, the fourth being Amor, leader of the Amorites, who also are Nazarites, and you cause them to drink strong drinks and to fall to the wayside. For all this you are cursed, and one strong and powerful will weaken and fall, and your powers to fight shall perish. Your wealth will fail you. A beggar you will become to those you once tried to destroy by great atomic bombs. All right. So now we talked about the atomic bombs earlier. So they're going to go trying to, they're going to turn to help. They're going to try to turn to help to the Asians. All right. They will yield to your begging with a good reason in mind, for they will be great and strong with the symbol of the dragon over them. They will be strengthened as the great wall they built aforetimes in their lands far eastward. All right. So the dragon represents the Asians. All right. So the Asians are coming into power. All right. The Caucasians are going to turn to them for hope. All right. 502. Esau's seed did mix with them aforetimes as dukes. They closed their gates until the time was right. Neither will you be able to stand against China anymore, for you weaken yourself fighting the Arab world. All right. And the great bear Russia stood and watched. All right. So this is going on now. All right. So didn't they make war with the Arabs? All right. They won't be able to stand against China when China decides to come after them, because Baabaa said that China has been sitting and waiting. Asia in general has been sitting and waiting for the opportunity, and the opportunity is coming. And also now Russia stood and watched as well. Earlier in the scroll, it says that China and Russia will come together to take down America and will succeed. All right. So we're going to see war on our shores in our lifetime. All right. Very soon. And the great bear Russia stood and watched. You wanted to destroy Syria and Persia, yet no one will fight for you or stand by you. All right. Interesting thing that in the year 2022, the petrodollar, the American dollar, what is that called? The expiration date, all right, was 2022. And the Arabs decided not to renew the America with the petrodollar. So now America is no longer backed by the petrodollar. All right. Petrodollar being the oil, by the oil industry. All right. Which at this current moment is being controlled by the Arabs. All right. So America is no longer part of that petrodollar club. All right. So you wanted to destroy Syria and Persia, yet no one will fight for you or stand by you. You are much too weak and poor, and your time ends, and they all know it. All right. And I'm thinking about something going on too. Let me see what I can speak on. Well, it's like Ghana made certain promises to their people as well, that they will bring their dependence on the dollar, American dollar, down, and that the new president made those promises that they will bring, because right now the dollar fluctuates somewhere between $13 and $16 13 and 16 Ghanaian dollars is about $1 American. And they said that they are about to bring it below 10 or even lower. All right. So the power of the dollar is, and the influence of the American dollar and the Western dollar in general, because you can see at one time, uh, uh, what year was that? Maybe around 2004, 2005, 2006. You will see that the, what do you call that? What's that European dollar? What's that European dollar that many European countries use? I forgot what it's called. Has anybody? Hmm?
Is it the euro?
The euro, yes. I don't know. European, that's actually the euro. The euro was like, it was at one time like 2 for 1. Like it was, I just remember like the Europeans used to love coming and shopping because it was like their dollar was so much stronger. Now it's almost equal because the euro fell, all right, and the American dollar's fallen too. So just Europe is on its way out, or the Caucasians on its way out, and everybody knows it. And people didn't believe me, but this is true. But COVID expedited their time faster. When I was in one of these companies, I sat with a Caucasian company and a company that was doing pretty good. And then I sat in their meeting. They said they want the Asian dollar, and they want to go to Africa. They want to link to Africa. And they said any business that doesn't link to Africa would go obsolete. I was in that meeting on 2019, and it was their 10-year plan. And their 10-year plan was slated for 2030. And it was all African and Asian. And what did they say? And I had shared that meeting on about what was discussed on Facebook, and people was laughing, you know. And I'm like, they did have this meeting. Now it seems realistic, but I'm like, no, they had that meeting in 2019. But what they didn't account for, they didn't account for COVID. So COVID, because there was a lot of companies making these plans. Because I remember Baabaa saying that they're trying to catch up, but they're a little bit late. They should have been did certain things. And what ended up happening was COVID happened, and it hit the businesses. All right. So they're not slated to make it anymore. All right. Without COVID, they would have been good. All right. So you see COVID expedited the deadline for them a lot faster for all these companies. And that was, I remember they said it. They said that any business that is not affiliated with Africa will become obsolete. And those were their words. All right. Not an African company, not even a black company, a white company. All right. So let's continue. For you are too weak and too poor, and your time ends, and they all know it. 509. For those who are courageous among the Wasarites, mighty nations will not flee from you anymore. All right. So a lot of African countries you see this year, well, 2024 has stood up to those foreign country. I mean, to the European structures, specifically France. All right, and Senegal, Burkina, Senegal. What is it? You know, what's the other name? Look, Faso, Burkina Faso, Burkina Faso. Yes. What was that, Zaman?
Burkina Faso.
Yes, Burkina Faso, Senegal, Mali. Those countries have asked America to leave and take their military ports with them. All right, their military stations with them, and then also they are in the process of, in some countries that already succeeded, kicking them out of their gold mines. All right. And I believe that Ghana has promised to do the same. So they are no longer cowering at the threat of America. They're actually standing up for themselves. And then France had the nerve to say that Africa should be showing their gratitude to France for their independence. It was so weird. All right. But they will no longer back off from them anymore. All right. Native and North America, the Hamir, red eagle, and the Kamen, black eagles, will come back to power in the midst of the land you once took from them. All right. So you're already seeing that. I was already told that's happening in parts of Arizona, that a lot of those Native American tribes over there are getting certain controls back. All right. They will stand up and fly again as a thunderbird. All right. So the red eagle and the black eagle. Baabaa is chief thunderbird, black eagle. All right. Because we were also here. All right. So they will stand and fly as thunderbird, the great phoenix, after 500 years of abuse. And the fires you caused them to suffer are now burnt out, and they are rising from their own ashes. After 500 years, first the red eagle tribes, then the black eagle tribes, by one called Black Eagle, who is dark-skinned, become ruler of America and broke the chains from the bird people and restore them to their own land. Hated he will be. All right. So you see at first, you saw those ambiguous tribes, the more oriental tribes, all right, coming in. I remember Bob was saying you'll see the neutrinoids, because he said years ago that you'll see the white image fade away and the neutrinoids taking their place. And then you'll see all the other subraces, and then eventually you'll see the black, all right? Like the first would be the last, and last would be the first. All right. So he will be hated. All right. So you see, as Baba said, the red eagle will be, you will see them being empowered. And then afterwards, you'll start seeing the black eagle tribes being empowered. All right. So first the red eagle tribes, then the black eagle tribes, by one called Black Eagle, who was dark-skinned, became ruler of America and broke chains from the bird people to restore them to their own land. Hated he will be, hated by the pale bird, the white vulture that lived on all others' flesh, lands, and wealth. All right. So you have the red bird, you have the black bird, and you have the white bird. The white bird is a vulture because he goes off and feeds off of everyone else. All right. His wings will be broken, the white vulture, all right, the white bird. He will fly no more. This is recorded of you, Pa Kakasu, the Caucasoids, or the Makasu, the pale white bird. Hear these words that are being recorded for you against you, the cursed seed of Canaan. I just respect Baba. I respect him so much. Because even being inside the belly of the beast, you could see how angry as they read everything that he puts out, and how angry they could be when they read this. All right. And they told him that if you say that everything that you're saying is a lie, we'll let you go. He said, he laughed. There's a recording of him. He laughed and he said he doesn't care if he ends up in a can of tuna. He's not taking these words back. All right. Because we're going to know the fate that they tried to destroy, but the truth is going to be out anyway, so that others will not have to suffer the fate of the white bird. All right. That's your fate to suffer, no one else's. All right. So hear these words that are being recorded for you against you, the cursed seed of Canaan. For you were against the whole family of earth. Out of all the Yasaru families on earth, you alone have caused Babel chaos. Therefore, we will punish you for all your iniquities. can two Salautwi races walk side by side, except you come between them? All right. So the other races lived fine in harmony. All right, as Bob explained in other scrolls. All right, each respecting their own, to each his own, except the Caucasoid has come between, or others turning people against each other. All right, like how some people try to do, because we have very seasoned Sabians in this group who's been around many decades, and we have new people in this group who's just coming in, and you have someone who come to try to cause a divide and come between the two, who's walking side by side, who's really one, because we're one tribe. It doesn't matter if I read this scroll first. Once we all know the truth, it doesn't matter who knew it first. You know what matters is who's applying it. All right, that's what matters. All right, who comprehends it? Whose genetics is it affecting? Because I could see something for many times and it doesn't do anything for me. You see it once and it takes you far. So I'm not anyone's keeper. All right. Accept the truth the best way that I can, that my genetics allow me. All right. So may everyone go as far as their genetics allow them to. All right. So can two Salautwi races walk side by side, except you come between them? Because by your very fatara nature, you know not to do right by others. An adversary you are to all others. And it is us, Pa Kamahu Pleiadians, who will bring down your strength from you, and your nations will be spoiled. All right. What's so interesting as I'm reading this, because Baba says that many beings come through him to get information out. And it's interesting that he's speaking in first person as a Pleiadian. All right. But he said that he's not able to write all this on his own. He gets many different entities who needs to say what to get what out. All right. So that's why I smiled. All right. So let's read that again. 521. An adversary you are to all others, and it is us, Pa Kamahu Pleiadians, who will bring down your strength from you, and your nations will be spoiled. 522. We will smite you in both Karab winter and Kawas summer. All right. So now they have summer plagues and winter plagues. All right. 523. You, great new Babel and Saddam, will have an end. It is much too late for you to seek who made the 7 sons of Sa'ahat's Orion star system and turned the shadow of earth on Taha earth to the morning sun and made daylight eclipse with nights. He who caused the Maya water of the sea and poured them upon the surface of the earth. You cannot return to Pa Natharu, the overseers, for help or for forgiveness. It is much too late for that. All right. So they are not welcome back. And they have no more protections from Pa Natharu. We do, So we do, depending on our decisions. And that's why we have this chant. So now when you chant, all right, chant number 3. And then you have a deeper appreciation for these chants and their meanings. All right. So it says, O overseer, our ancestor, guard us from the wicked ones, guard us from ignorance, guard us, O overseers, guard us from becoming changed. Guard us, guard me, guard us, guard me. All right. So they had a time to harmonize themselves with the other beings here. They just couldn't do it. All right. Now for us, we are given the opportunity now, as we're not necessarily, we're not where we need to be. All right. But we have been given the opportunity to clean ourselves up and tune ourselves back up And we have until the year, well, you see different years, but 2030, we have until the year in some scrolls, 2032, and some scrolls, 2033, and some scrolls up into 2043. All right. And we'll see what becomes our fate. But they have been judged already. And for us, in the Bridge Towards Salvation, we are all going to be judged at that time. All right. And some of us are slated to make it, and some of us are not. All right. But as a race, we are going to make it as a race. Because Baabaa said that if you have one male and one female of that race, the race has made it. All right. So that's all that's needed. All right. So you cannot turn to Pa Natharu, the overseers, for help and for forgiveness. It is much too late for that. Healing itself, that's another thing. That's why I am so grateful when you could catch a cold and you could heal from it, as an example. Be very grateful for that. That's our shuk. The ability to heal means that that's the ability to correct mistakes. All right. And the fact that you can do that. All right. So it's in your genetics to do that. All right. It's the decisions that you're making. All right. So 426. Into the Nawar lights and the Narar fire you will be cast to suffer. You never burn up, only for suffer forever. This is for and from Pa Gadaj Shalil Nawar Wu Nawar, the God of light and fire, who you served, and to whom you offer Jasad flesh and Damam blood. Now you yourselves will be an offering, as you did Jesus, your Messiah, the Anointed One. No faith will ever change one's faith. Truth is truth, and facts are facts. And that concludes our scroll, Moisard. Does anybody have any questions about anything that was read? Or anything that you're taking away or that you want to share? All right. Or maybe another scroll. Yes, Zamal Bill. Yeah.
It's a little bit
Some reason I can't hear
confusing.
you.
Okay, sorry. Is it better?
Oh, 10 times better.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
So I was saying, when I started reading the scrolls, I was trying to share with the people around me, but they were in, I don't know, they were in the spell, I'll say it like that. And we have a pandemic here where our women, they don't love themselves, and they bleach their skin and they wear wigs and all that. So it has been very hurtful for me, and I've been trying to tell them that this is not good, right? It's destroying us. Like it shows that we don't love ourselves. So after hearing all this, after hearing you read this, it's sad, but they will just have to pay the consequences of their choices. So that's what I was trying to share. Yeah, that's all.
Mhm. Right, right. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, because that's the idea. The reality is that we have a scroll called the decision, you know. So it's important for us to share the facts, you know, and then what people will do with them, that's really their business, you know. So I remember Bob was saying, if you can, like, a lot of us did things that showed we didn't really love ourselves because we've been programmed to want acceptance of anybody else. All right. And we did it in different ways. All right. So not everybody bleached their skin, but some of us, the way we carried ourselves, we were mentally in the image of, or spiritually in the image of someone else, or whatever the case. And as you learn the truth about who and what you are, and you can still do that to yourself, that means that you're truly a decrepit being. But the reality is that a lot of us, we still don't know, you know, and that's being done by design. And that's part of the reason why Baaba's incarcerated, all right, to keep certain information from getting out. Because as it gets out, it touches people, certain beings, not everybody, to want to do better and to be better. And as we apply it, sometimes I find that I'm gonna be honest. When I first came around and people were talking about all this information, not necessarily this particular information, but just in general, just other things, maybe some of this information. And then I would look at their lives and I just thought that they were just, honestly, my assessment was that these people were low lives. They were smart low lives. That's my honest assessment of what I had experienced. And I'm not saying it's everybody, because I'm reading this information and sharing it too. And I don't think I'm a low life. But it was like people that would just get up on stage, share information. I didn't see how it worked in their lives. That's the introduction and the model of it. If that's where it's going to take me, then I don't want it, you know? And the reality is that sometimes seeing something modeled is a great thing as well. And that's why it's time for us to start to apply it, you know. And then somebody will come to you and say, you know what, there's something about you. Can you tell me what your secret is? And I think that would be helpful as well, because right now, you know, you have they've done such a good job in the power of the image. So now we also have to comprehend also the power of the image and actually living, so that others can naturally gravitate. And as a child, you'll want to be that. So that's why Baba has his picture. He says keep his picture up, because his picture and everything that he's accomplished is supposed to be an inspiration of something to strive for, all right, and something to be. So you will be admiring one of your own instead of something that's adverse to what's going to be helpful or good for you. But no matter what you tell some people, they still won't be interested. And that's just the reality. All right. Oh, and then also, some people, just because you plant a seed, sometimes you won't see it blossom, but you may plant a seed and something else may trigger it to grow. And so, you know, it's for each person's journey. And sometimes we don't know what that person's journey is about. So, you know, they may not be slated to go off until later. And that's fine too. All right.
It has been very helpful for me, because even close friends with whom we used to share the same thought process, or like think the same, I would share the scrolls with them, but they won't even read it. I don't know why. It has been so helpful for me, because I'll be telling them, like, the things you are following, are you getting the answers you are trying to find, or what is stopping you from getting new information? So these past few years have been really very lonely, because I don't understand anybody again, and they just act very strange, and they can't even face the truth. That's what has been very, very helpful. So I think after this message you shared, they just have to deal with their choices. So I hope the master teachers, the changes are seen clearly for those who have been doubting. So yeah.
Right. And then also here in the West, we kind of had a little head start, you know, because we had this information, you know, communities and all that for a little while. Um, so, things need to play out in a process. And, Baba does plan to come to Africa, you know, and there's a concentrated effort to keep information out of certain people's hands. So I'm very excited to see what the Africans do. All right. Once the information is returned to them on a big scale. All right. Um, and I see it as a process. It might be lonely for the ones of us who get information first, but your tribe is coming. It is coming, and just continue to work on yourself. And everybody who's taken, I would say, and I have lonely moments as well. But everybody who's taken this information seriously, um, it can be very lonely because there's a lot of us in image, we take it serious, but in practice, uh, we may not see it as much. All right. But it's like everybody's working through their own issues. Yes, Zamal. I see Antoine. Zamal Antoine, I saw you unmuted. Let me see. Was it
That was an
Antoine?
accident. My apologies.
Oh, no problem.
Oh, we don't say apologies no more now, do we? That's one word I got to get out my mouth.
Okay.
I'm sorry for that. My finger slipped over on the dial. I just chimed in, called it on the telegram, and thought I tap in so that I can get maybe caught up on some of this that's been coming in so fastly.
Right. It's a great scroll. I think it's a great scroll for a lot of us. I feel like it's a call to action and activation, and everything is recorded. So it's for the convenience. And then also, you know what I've noticed, because I was giving books, Zamal Bill, I was giving books away to people, and I noticed they weren't reading it either. Like anybody who I gave a book to as a gift, I don't actually I think one person read it. But I did find that like this group has actually helped because some of the people, they ended up uh like being on the Telegram group, and they'll go back and look at the videos, and they think it's deep, they like it. So I just think that a lot of people right now, they just don't have the focus to read, and there's so much entertainment, and we're so used to being so stimulated, which is the reason why I camera up. Because I understand that like our attention span is not what it used to be. So that's why I have the voice and I have the image, so people can have something to visually look at, which would be very helpful. Also sometimes children watch. And I realized that people are more receptive than I thought they were, and people are actually ready for this. It's just being able to get them concentrated. And a lot of people are actually looking for this information right now. So just kind of getting the flavor that I guess people can relate to. Because I'm finding that like even I was like listening to a recording I had recorded before. And usually I might listen to it on my headphones because I don't want to disturb anyone. And I was in like a family member's house. But I ended up like I was like doing stuff like cooking and things like that. So I just took the headphones out and I just let it play. And it's like everybody stopped to just listen. And they was like, yeah, I know exactly. And I was like, wow, they like it. So, people are actually more receptive, especially right now, than we may think that they are. All right. It just might not be like the format. It might be more sort of format. So right now, I don't think a lot of people want books, but after you get them interested, maybe they might read the book. All right. So that might be another thing as well, Bill. So that's why everything is recorded, and you can always play it. And you can see if that helps. Or another really interesting podcast that I really like because it's short and it's concise, and there's a camera, because I think the camera helps, because I don't even really like to listen to things too much myself anymore either. But the podcast is called A Dose of Reality. All right, and it's by the Walker brother and sister. And they just talk about current events and scrolls, and it seems very relevant, straight to the point, entertaining. They have nice personalities. They look good. So it just makes it's interesting. And just playing those things and have it playing, when people come over and your friends come over, and it's just in the background on TV, that might be helpful. That's something to think about, Bill.
I've got a question.
Yes,
I'll check it out. I'll look for it online.
Oh yeah, I'll see if I could find the link of their podcast. I had shared one of their podcasts, and they've been doing it for like 2 years now. They have a lot of interesting shows. And after I shared this video, they just covered the fires. I was like, perfect timing, but I wanted to read the book, and I had planned to share their class or their conversation. It's just a conversation that they have, and it was about a good short 10-15 minutes. So I'll share that probably tomorrow. So you won't have to look for it. Yes, Zamatat, Sakamatat.
Yeah, Rahubat. While you were talking, something just came to mind when you were talking about the cycles. The 6,000 year cycles for each, you would say, race.
Mm-hmm.
If the Caucasian race is going to slowly be wiped out, within the next cycle, will we have a longer stretch? I don't know if that makes sense, because they won't have their 6,000 year portion. Does that make any sense?
I think that we'll probably okay, that's a good question. And I heard that question asked again, and I heard other people answer it. And I think that's a great question to ask Baba. And I think that I heard him answer it, but I'm going by memory. But what comes to mind is that what will happen is that we'll have some other form. It might not be them again in that form, but we may have some other challenge to face at that time. All right. Because there's always a time of construction and deconstruction. Even though they're unnatural, they're actually still a part of nature, in the sense that they serve their purpose, because you have materialization and dematerialization, construction and destruction. And so there's going to be some other destruct from what I recall. There's going to be another destructive force. And I remember in a letter from Baba that he had wrote me, he had said that he said corruption always makes its way through. But what happens is that there's a time where there's order. So you might have a corruption. Like, even though we're cleaning things out, there's still corruption that still is going to make its way through. But what happens, though, is that it becomes ordered, because at that time, order rules. So you might have a corrupt thing, but it doesn't have any space. It doesn't have any room to be corrupt. So it just has to be what it is. So now when we drop down again, all right, it would show its corruption again. All right. So that's vaguely how I'm remembering it. It might not be the Caucasoid, or it might not play out in the races like that, but some type of change and cycle is going to play out. Okay.
All right, I understand. And my last question, I just want to get it clear in my head. So after the Caucasians have been judged, and maybe will be taken for food, and anyone who follows their way and their culture get caught up in that, and they slowly fade away. Do we inherit the earth and reap the benefits from them not being here, or Matthew says some of us will be taken? The rest what are left, are we left to inherit the earth in a good state, or we left here to try to defend ourselves from whatever entity is left on the earth? That makes
Okay. From how I'm understanding the question, how I'm reasoning it out, is that it's going to be all the above, in the sense that, like, for example, the Adamites are gone. All right. Within my own family, all right, I'll use my example. Within my own family, there's some Adamite genes because there was some rapes on both sides. All right. Like my mom's family, they from the Hindu side. All right. My father's family, African side. And both sides had abuses from the Adamites. And then on like my great grandfather, he had blue eyes because of the rape. But my grandmother, she's darker than me in India. And then my great grandmother, my grandmother is not that dark because she lightened up because of the father. So I'm saying all that to say is that I'm left to pick up the pieces of what happened to me genetically, the disruptions in the DNA. All right. So I'm left to clean up the pieces because it's going to play out for at least 4 generations. All right. So what I'm doing now, I'm laying the groundwork. All right. And what my parents been through. So in the 1980s, for example, 1970s, 1980s, okay, in the 60s, you had a lot of liberation happening all over the planet. All right. So the CIA and different operatives, they infiltrated using drugs. All right. And they turned our black is beautiful into pimping. All right. In the 70s, and drugs in the 80s. All right. That was all government operative. And a lot of our people, because of what they were facing, they started to escape using drugs. And they might have cleaned themselves up, but the repercussions from that, a lot of us were born into that. All right. That's going to play out for at least 4 generations because those influences. All right. And those are things that we'll have to work through. So you're still picking up the pieces. All right. So it's not like, oh, yay, it's time for reconstruction. So you had to rebuild. And right now it's our time as Africans not to be fighting others. All right. Or getting even. It's time for us as Africans to start healing and picking up the pieces and reconstructing, because the helping hand's at the end of your own arm. And it's for us to apply and to start doing, because no one's going to do it on our behalf. And for those of us who go intergalactically on different dimensions, there's a lot of things that's happening. It's playing out in different ways, and everybody should be where they're meant to be. Even some of us being taken to the seas, because some of our genetics go back down there. But it's like it's going to be a reconstruction time, and reconstruction time really leaves room for that time of healing. All right. So a lot of the times where what happened to you, sometimes you're still working through it years later. Just like what happened in this scroll talks about that when they bombed in 1945, when the United States bombed Japan in Hiroshima, and it killed some of them, and some of them it didn't kill, and they were wishing that they would die. The suffering was so bad. And not only did it affect them, it affected their children's. And then if we know the science of genetics, it's affecting them still till today. And we it will affect them at least until 2045. That's 100 years, because that can represent 4 generations. All right. So it takes about 4 generations to heal that trauma. All right. So it's healing time.
Shout out for the answer.
Mm-hmm. All right. Anybody else? What did this scroll inspire from you? Like something that you're thinking about that you triggered to share with us that can help us, or just a question that you could post to the platform, or even a suggestion of something else that we could look at, what's going on in current events or anything.
Oh, these
All right.
fires.
Huh?
Robot.
Okay, I'll let someone else talk.
Yes, Rahul back command still.
Go ahead, sister. Go ahead.
I appreciate that, Zamal. And then you after, okay? Yes, Zamal Tessa Kamtet.
These fires were engulfing, I think it's Hollywood at the moment. I was just listening to someone, some kind of fire expert, and he was saying that it's not an ordinary fire because the trees are not getting burnt, but glass and metals are being actually turned to ash. And it doesn't make sense. It says this, it's coming like that the fire is, the earth is being microwaved. That's how he described it. And the trees are still erect. They're actually being burnt from inside.
I saw that too. I
Oh, you
did.
saw
Somebody,
it?
yeah. Somebody else commented on that on a video I was watching. They said it's interesting how the tree's still standing there, and all the somebody did. I saw a comment saying that. But
Yeah,
continue, Zamal said. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So they said that so the trees are being cooked from inside. And then I was watching, I think it was the brother and sister what you was talking about, and they were talking about the cyclones of fire
Yeah.
burning, and the master teacher did mention that was going to take place. So it's obvious it's not an ordinary everyday fire. This is something very I don't know how to, supernatural or from our ancestors, or something definitely going on, and the science is there to back it up. And that's what I
Right.
wanted to say.
Oh, I was looking at something that is being investigated as well when it comes to what you had said, that kind of ties into what you said, that they were considering, and they weren't linking it to that fire particularly, but they were linking it to drones. And they said that if the drones can have lasers on them, that they can actually pinpoint uh, places and set them on fire.
Interesting, because
That's
there
Mm,
was a
true.
lot of drones recently sighted.
right.
Yeah,
So it could be that, the drones, because they were finding that those drones were more advanced than the drones that they had on the East Coast, in Jersey and New York. They were seeing all these drones, and they were saying they were the size of, in some cases, houses, semi trucks, and that their drones were sometimes undetectable, and that they seem to have technology that was more advanced than the drones that the government had. All right. So they were saying, was that another government? Was it extraterrestrial? So then you can have uh, lasers on some drones. So uh, yeah. So it was kind of linked to drones having lasers on them, and then on this scroll, on the Nibiru craft, is depicted with a hologram beam. All right. So a hologram beam also deals with lasers and things like that. But if you go on the right frequency, my background is skincare. All right. So for example, if you go on the right frequency, you can like for example, I can shoot a laser, all right, and it can go on the right frequency and just go straight to my liver while bypassing all the other things. All right. Or I can shoot a laser and it affects one skin tone but not another skin tone. All right. So you can pinpoint on a frequency. So for example, if you set the laser on the frequency of, and that's why another scroll, Baba says that there's no being extraterrestrial, whatever, that doesn't work within the laws of nature. They just might have more knowledge than you about how a certain thing works and how to manipulate it, but they're still working with the confines of nature. So um so it's still within the confines of nature for those of us who know how certain thing works. So you can turn a laser on the frequency of metal, for example, where it won't bother. I mean, if there's anything in you, for example, oh, that's a good example. So if you have any type of metal in you and you go through some type of machines, it can hurt you. But if you don't have the metal in you, it doesn't hurt you. So now you can put a beam to attack metal or glass, and it won't attack some other material like maybe plastic, or it won't bother a human. All right. It will only bother, this particular thing that is set for. So they can change the frequency of that laser to pinpoint whatever it is that it wants. And I remember Baba talking about study lasers and the power of lasers, and yeah, so that makes sense what you said.
Yeah,
I
that
think
makes sense what you were just saying. Yeah, because it was like bypassing the wood and it was burning everything down and to ash, not even scorching it, actually to ash, and
and did
things
you
what
see how
should,
some houses were untouched, and
yeah,
they're saying they can't explain that.
some sorry, what wasn't touched?
It would be like a whole neighborhood burned and some houses were totally untouched and they couldn't explain it.
Oh no, I didn't see that. He was talking mostly about the trees, what should have really catch on fire really easily, ignited, and they were untouched.
Yeah,
And yeah, that he was because he was like a forest. He understood about nature, and
mm,
he was like dumbfounded. So houses, maybe the material that the house was made from was more
exactly.
natural. Yeah.
Yeah, or it was like made with materials that don't burn as easily or not on that frequency. And that
Uh-huh.
reminds me of us, Zamal, you next, all right? And that reminds me of us that Baba says that we have to get on the right frequency so we can get off the radar, all right? So if we're in the Caucasoid frequency, we're going to get caught up in a laser beam, figuratively speaking, that really wasn't programmed for us. But because we want to be like that other thing, we're going to catch what was targeted for them. Yes, and Zamal Antoine.
Okay, so you just really pinpointed. I was just reading it today that they have these homes that was built and they call them passive homes, and they're made of fireproof or fire resistant material, as you were just saying. And so those would be the homes that did not burn down. And there's only a few of them. These will also be the same people who are the billionaires in the neighborhood. And I was just reading that report, ironically, that you're talking about that. So I could actually answer to that. That is um, the way I see it is that the whole region itself consists with the uh, the space invaders. That's what I'm going to call them.
Mm,
Of them being extracted the same way that they was brought in. They was brought in uh, on slavery. I would use that, and so they're gonna have to leave in the same way. You came in with nothing. Your contract stated something. You didn't fulfill the contract, and so the reset is everything go back to where it was. So they're flatlining in what's called
Oh.
the West Coast,
Mm.
and they're not just working. That's the one place that you can accept a warning because of the earthquake that did just jump off. A few weeks ago, out in the Pacific, that was 6.5, and it shook California to the point where they was looking for a tsunami. So since the tsunami didn't make it, here's Plan B. Moving forward, that they're going to exterminate the West Coast by all means. They do and are expecting for that earthquake that's bubbling out there in the Pacific right now. So I take it as it be known, as you all keep mentioning, that Baba had come through to me at some time in the last 5 years. It's like I've been prepared to get off of the West Coast. I'm in Oregon, which is the 33rd state of the United States. To me, this is what I call the empire of the Freemasons, because this is the very place where everyone seems to be coming to. They're coming to this gate to leave out, but not only hearing that they're going to leave out the way they came in. It is that they're preparing for that, for the water to come back. I'm gonna say it like that. They're preparing for the ocean to be back in place, because this is all ocean. We're in sea level. We're at this. This is like the floor. The West Coast is like the sea floor. And so the Big Bang Theory is all consistent with this portion, which is called West Coast, of the return of nature, in its most finest. You may look at it even as to, you was mentioning something about 1945. Well, 1945, this place was called Oregon, was flooded. Not only was it just flooding here, but they were flooding in other areas as well throughout the West Coast, specifically Washington, even from Canada, but what they call today Canada, all the way to what they call Texas today. So we may examine that and take a census as to the very thing that's going to occur is going to be pushing everyone off of that West Coast. It's a warning, but pushing everyone off of the West Coast closer into, and this is, I think, is the right platform that I may safely say this, but we're gonna get closer to Baba.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we going to Colorado. We going to Wyoming, Utah, Arkansas, Oklahoma. We're gonna be right on the edge, right there with them. That's where we're being pushed towards him.
Right.
And
same things happen
I
on
say
the
that
East Coast.
the things that are happening on the East Coast are is the slow drip, if you
The
will.
what?
It's the
Say
slow.
it again.
I call the events that are happening on the East Coast slow drip. It's a warning in the ways that, like I seen, where was it? Was it New York? I think it was a building that was on fire at the same time as California was on fire on the same day. And yes, I'm going to agree with you about the drones with the lasers pinpointing and causing those fires to occur. I have to agree with you on that. I've been watching them for the last 10 years, making these drones to do this specifically. This is their military. you know.
Right. Well, it
Um,
was an
um,
investigation article. It was an article I read that was investigating that about the
well,
lasers on the, yeah, the
they
lasers
have
on the.
they have the lasers, they got the lasers, they got the guns, you know, they got guns that can bend around the corner and shoot. I mean,
They
they just like, you know,
they have
it's not,
guns. They have guns
yeah,
also that they can
hmm
program to find a
hmm
target too.
very good. That's what I'm talking about. All
Yeah.
this infrared and reading
Mhm.
through heat, you know, heats, you know, all of this kind of stuff right here, like the way
Mhm.
it is in the snitch kit in Joshua 7, it talks about all of this AI.
Mm.
So, you know, just reading it, you know what I'm saying, it makes you know that they've been preparing for this for too long. Think about how they're going in the ground. You know, The Simpsons. Most people pay attention to with The Simpsons. I see a lot of that. Springfield, Oregon. It's true that that's where the biggest underground city is,
Mm.
which is just
Interesting.
again right on the edge, just before just before leaving the West Coast. It's sitting right along the edge where the water would come right up to. It would just get right there. Then you think about that's a straight line also from Springfield to the place where Hollywood is, where the historical building is that did not or was not affected by the fire. Straight down beneath that is the underground city.
Mm.
That whole compound is just like the crown, and beneath it is, I mean, it's plain sight. You know that's what they're doing. So,
Well, the
um,
thing is that as they prepare one way, because they don't know which way,
mhm,
because it's like the walls are closing in all
there you go. Mhm,
directions. So it's like as they
mhm,
prepare to protect themselves in this way, then that happened. So they were preparing to get into Africa by 2030, the company that I was working for. They did not
mhm,
they did not include COVID happening, because COVID happened after they had made that whole plan. And it's so funny, they released that whole plan months before COVID happened. So it expedited their deadline. So I don't think they're gonna make it, you know. But it's like as you prepare this way, so okay, I'm gonna build a fire protecting house. And then it comes
yeah,
in this way. Or I'm gonna do all this, and then you catch this disease that, that's just taking you out. So it's their time is up, and from every angle, if it's not going to go down this way, then it's going to go down that way, and they just can't prepare for it. And I remember Baba said that his best thing that he can tell us is to get away from them, get out of their
yeah,
neighborhood, and such and
yes.
such.
That's the beautiful part right there. We
Hmm.
have had that of this wonderful being to actually reach us and warn us. Like I said, I've been doing this for 5 years that I've been preparing,
Mm.
and Colorado was is before I even became, this close to Wusabat.
That was on your
This is
list.
what I've been this closely in communication with. I didn't know where it was coming from either, but I know now.
Oh, I see. You were just being. I remember Baba says certain people's genetics are going to be turned on, and because like he was explaining certain things in people's bodies, like people who have the hole in this part of the ear, not an earring hole, but they were born like that, and it's on
Mm,
both sides. Um, that's actually something that's going to be activated, that they'll be able to actually hear voices that'll direct them where to go. Uh, Certain genetics and certain gifts are being turned on different people, or will be turned on, they'll be activated. And this is why it's so important for us to start cleaning ourselves up right now, so that we can get the activations that we need. And we all have different gifts, and you know different things that will be activated as needed. And we're really in those times, and a lot of times you'll just have an intuition or knowingness. Like, for example, Certain things I just know. I don't know how I know. I just know.
There you
And then
go.
I
I
follow that
mean, it's
voice.
Same.
And I follow that voice, and I'm never disappointed. So that's the importance of keeping your conscience clear, treating people good and everything like that, because it keeps you connected to your conscience and your higher senses. And that's the whole point of letting go of animosity. And if you're angry, because all that gets in the way of, you know, and not letting people pull you into your ego and things like that. Hmm.
is that the same? I don't want to take up too much more time of
Hmm.
anyone else coming along the way. I appreciate love you all allowing me to speak. I've been excited since I've become, part of the Wu Spot family, and I've been waiting to speak to people that speak my language, you know. And so it's this one turn on that um let it be known that the fire in me is one that's is very broad now, and to embrace what I am at this time. I'm very thankful. I'm very, very thankful. People look at me in a certain type of a way because I am this, and I'm talking about my said family members, but yet they've
Same.
been very truthful. They've been very, very truthful as to saying that they were jealous of me and envious of me because certain things that I was doing as I was becoming, grown, because I do a lot of things. They call me jack of all trades,
Hmm.
and I don't go to school for this. It's like you were just getting ready to say. I just know stuff,
Hmm.
and I didn't read books, but yet, like my children would ask me, "Dad, how do you know all of this? And you didn't go to school?" Well, I'll tell you, I'm a natural being. That's why, and
Oh, that's a
I don't
beautiful
have a,
answer. I like that. Mhm.
I don't have another answer for a lack of answers.
Right. And that's what these scrolls are supposed to be, tools to remembering tools,
Yeah.
because when you really think about it, when Bob is sharing certain things, it's common sense. Well, it should be, but it was like sensibilities that we kind of became out of touch with, and we would need remembering tools. And a lot of times when you're reading certain things, it will be confirmed like you already knew certain things, or certain things you had an idea, you just didn't have the proper words to put it into in to articulate it, right? So it's like speaking the language of the soul, and that's the beautiful thing. Bob was putting us back in touch with our soul, and whoever's coming to make you take you out of your center, make you doubt yourself or whatever, it's about making us come back and have that deeper connection with ourselves, because it's about that journey within. And these scrolls really help us to tune back in, all right? Because our ancestors, as Baba explains in numerous scrolls, they've always been talking to us. We just been ignoring them.
More like being distracted.
Yeah, I'm being distracted because we were chasing something else, fool's gold, so to speak. Yeah. I saw Zamal Bill. He unmuted a couple times. Uh yes, Bill.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about this like what do I say, vibrations in my head. Like it's like a generator that is running around somewhere, but I don't know where. But it's like I'm hearing it, but I know it's not there, and sometimes it's ringing. So I don't know if there's any scroll that talks about it. Yeah, that was
Um
a question.
yeah. Sometimes I heard Baba explain that sometimes you hear ringing. That could be also uh who's scanning you? Was it the extraterrestrials? Who is scanning you? Yeah, maybe it's the crafts. Yeah, I think that's what he's saying. The crafts scanning you. Um, a lot of the times it's it's just for you to like pay attention, you know. You may not be hearing. I remember I was seeing things that wasn't there. So, you know, I don't like to tell people definitively what's going on, because you know, I don't always know. But like one time I seen something like smoke that wasn't there, and people they weren't there. But the reality is that I needed to drink more water. I needed to exercise. I needed to get certain things in alignment. So it made me pay attention, because when I started to look around and I started to see the pictures floating off the wall, I was just like, what's going on? So sometimes it could be short circuits. You know, it could be spiritual things happening. It could be physical things out of alignment. So us taking responsibility to, because it's like Baba said, to prepare your being, because these times are coming where we will start to get whole light beings, and if we haven't prepared ourselves, it can be very destructive, or we won't get the whole light being. So the whole light beings will start to embody us. So by making sure that we're eating properly, making sure that we are consuming the right things, you know, and it's sometimes getting a sensitivity, you know, with ourselves and tuning ourselves back up. So it could be that too.
I think I've been preparing for a while now, so now the sounds are quite constant when I'm in silence. It's just all I hear, and I stopped smoking. I stopped smoking weed, and I stopped eating meat. So I think I'm ready.
Right. And then working through certain emotions and accepting people. Like I was so angry at people because I feel like they had did me wrong. And then I started just focusing on myself, and guess what? A lot of those people, the relationships seem to have changed and they're more agreeable. So it's like letting go sometimes, because I had saw like you have put something in the chat where you were angry about, you know, things that you had seen or how you have been treated. And I remember Bob also telling me, but it's a process. You have to work through it. And certain emotions, letting certain emotions go, growing past certain emotions. And like we're at that time, right? To think bigger. And you know, I think that we all get in our own course in our own way. And as long as we just keep working on being our best selves. And sometimes the very person that you fought with, then they end up getting the activation later on. Or they're inspired by what you're becoming, and then they respond differently, you know. So it's just the time to think bigger.
Personally, I'm not waiting for anybody. they should make their choices.
Right.
I wasted too much energy trying to prove to them that they are wrong. So if they want, they do it. If they don't.
Right. I think a lot of us can relate to that. Man, I wasted so much time convincing others. And I'm like, when I decided to focus on me, they came back and started asking me, what can I do? So it's like, you know, that energy we're spending, you know, it's like, I remember Baba has said that we're in high noon, and you can't go back to save people who fell behind you. So if they catch up with you, great. If they don't, then, you know, they don't. Because if you go back, you won't make it. So a lot of times when you're getting where you need to be, sometimes a person needs to see what it looks like. And that's what inspired them. And focusing on yourself, those same people who you were trying to convince, they come seeking you. And in actuality, they ended up getting where they need to be. So it's we don't have to feel guilty now for um, focusing on what we need to. All right. So if that person is not ready, you don't have to sit and wait. You don't feel guilty about that anymore. All right. Anybody else? Because we're gonna wrap up we're gonna wrap up in 2 minutes, because it's gonna stop recording. All right. So we